The mantra of our business is you don't know what you don't know. So you have to sometimes run headfirst into a new problem that no one has ever really solved. So I'm a mechanical engineer. So I'm a mechanical guy. I like to design stuff. We sell time with a great cup of coffee. We sell not sitting at Starbucks for 20 minutes and waiting in line. I wanted the customer experience to be a little mysterious, to be a little magical. Today, we've been in operation 2 years at our first location, picking up in 10 seconds or less. Like, people barely tap the brake. Myself, full-time, and my programmer, half-time. So it was 1.5 people that got the first container open, basically. I think total funds raised so far is something like 4.3 million. We try to be 10 to 15% cheaper than our locals, say Starbucks, Dunkin, Caribou. We're basically sub 18 months for cash on cash. You pick it up with a crane, you drop it down, you plug it in, and you're selling coffee potentially within hours. It is below $1 million, and it is above $500,000. I think it's going to be capable of somewhere between 800 to 1,200 drinks. My early criticism of Briggo and CafeX, amazing piece of custom stuff. The problem there is everything's custom. Their early launch locations were in airports. 200,000 people to come through and use your system one time, that's fine. But you're going to live and die on repeat customers, and that's the worst population you can ever do. Artley's great. In terms of dollars, holy crap, they raised Start Engine round at 100 million valuation, which is ludicrous. And like, knowing what we know, I'm like, how the heck can you justify that? You have to believe in yourself. A sign on my wall that says, win, lose, learn.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Yummy Robots podcast, the place where we explore how one can benefit from the use of robotics, AI, and automation in the food and beverage industry. My name is Eugene Kovalenko. I'm an expert in coffee robots business, and today I'm so much happy to host here a speaker from the United States of America, the CEO and founder of a robotic coffee drive-through concept, OCTANE COFFEE, Adrian Deasy. Hi, Adrian.
Hey, nice to have me.
Thanks for joining. That's my real pleasure.
Sounds good. All right, let's get going.
You know, Adrian, every time we start talking about robotics coffee, I mean, nowadays there are more than 50 players, and in a way, all of those are very much alike. Somebody is using fully automated coffee machines, somebody is using semi-automatic coffee machines, but your concept is truly different. For me, you're the only one with this unique approach in the market. I do remember the moment when I came across for the first time a piece of news that some guy in the USA is rolling out his robotics coffee drive-through. I thought, man, this is gonna be crazy. He's gonna fly really high. And I'm so much happy that today we can discuss where you're right now, how you came up to this point, how you came up with the idea and all the related stuff. So,
Gotcha.
Yeah, let's start. Adrian, will you be able just to recollect the real moment when the idea of making a robotics drive-through concept hit your mind?
Yeah, so we'll start from the basics. So I'm a mechanical engineer. So I'm a mechanical guy. I like to design stuff. I'm typically a car guy, motorcycle guy, bike guy. Like I like building stuff. I've always been a tinkerer. My father and his father before him were also engineers. So I knew at a young age, like my dad would go to the dump and bring home a VCR or things like that. And he'd be like, here's a set of screwdrivers, rip it apart. So I've always been tinkering with stuff. I was always interested in robotics back in the day, middle school, high school, through university, and kind of always, I wanted to pursue that as a career, but it was hard. I didn't know where to go necessarily. Like this was back, it's in the 2000s, is kind of when I went through college. And so like AI wasn't a thing. I definitely wasn't into computer programming. Like my brain just doesn't work that way. I like doing design. I like doing creative stuff. in terms of manufacturing as well. So out of college, I ended up working for Chrysler, which is now Stellantis, so big automotive manufacturer. I worked for Harley Davidson. I worked in an aerospace company. And then my other corporate job was a rubber and plastic injection molding. So my corporate career out of college was definitely always focused on high volume, fast, cool automation and just manufacturing in general. So I was the young kid out of college. They were basically throwing me to the wolves and saying like, hey, you're young, you're smart, you know computers, you can work on this system. So I got thrown to the wolves quite literally. And we worked on some very cool, like automated systems, adding robotics. It was hard to hire people. This was 10, 15 years ago. It was hard to hire people back then, let alone COVID and now beyond.
Yeah.
So we were already heavily into automation, removing people from the factory floor, figuring out like cameras and computers and sensors and what could you really do and accomplish in a fully automated, not lights out per se, like welcome to giant automotive factory, there's people everywhere, but approaching that very rapidly. And so through my time in corporate, like I was the young kid, I could figure these things out. And I got tossed into a lot of very cool and deep projects, very much automotive and automation focused. So out of that, I ended up jumping off with consulting full time with the birth of my son back in kind of 2017, 2018. I'd been dabbling in it nights and weekends and just trying to figure out like, I've always been entrepreneurial. My mother's basically got her MBA. My dad has run multiple little side businesses and things like that. So it was kind of in my genes, in my family. At some point, I was going to go into business for myself. So I ended up taking the leap out of corporate life, kind of 2017, 2018 timeline into consulting. So I had a consulting firm. I had a handful of people underneath me. We were doing custom robot cells and tooling, fixtures, jigs for manufacturers. So this was like small to medium-sized manufacturing, but that's what I know. So we were basically taking like, hey, I got this product, I can sell them, I can make them, but I need a machine that runs 24 hours a day. So we were designing really cool custom machines that were $250,000, maybe up to $500,000. So nothing crazy, massive scale, but they were small, they were unique, and they were perfectly suited for what they did. So like we were making the Ferrari of this one thing. It needs to do this day in, day out. No maintenance, nasty environment, oil in the air, like manufacturing is a tough, tough life for equipment. You try to keep stuff alive. So that's my background. So we were looking for a project. And so like as a consultant, you're always kind of looking for the next gig, the next job, the next project, the next thing you can work on. And so in one of these kind of cycles, we basically were like, well, hey, we know how to do this. Why don't we create a product for ourselves that works, that is automation focused, that removes labor from the process, that is like using our skill sets and our knowledge for manufacturing. And like, it was always a sad moment when we would launch a machine on a factory floor and just know like, okay, that project is done and I got to go find a new one. And there was never a need for a machine number 2, number 3, number 4. Once you've done all the engineering, all the design, all the plumbing and wiring, all the programming, like building a duplicate, 3, 4, 10 of the same machine is actually really, I would say easy, but easier in the scope of things. Like the first machine is the heavy lift. And so from our perspective, we're like, let's make a product of our own. And so coffee robotics was never like the plan. We were at a tooling show down in Chicago. It was the Automate show, looking at robots, looking at equipment, looking at like, oh, what kind of business could we create that is heavily automation focused? And just oddly enough, there was a Starbucks there at the convention. And of course, they were serving coffee. They were doing well. I'm not a big coffee guy, like to start with. So then we saw the line up and around the Skyway. There was probably 50 people waiting in line for coffee. And I'm there with a buddy of mine. And I made one offhand comment. I'm like, well, clearly, like their marketing is good. Their coffee is good. You know what you're going to get. It's not necessarily premium, perfect, world class. You know with the experience that you're going to get.
Yeah.
But who's got time to sit here 20, 30, 40 minutes for a $3 cup of coffee? Like it didn't make sense. So this was back in that kind of 2018, 2019 timeline. My buddy, Dan Vole, raising a venture capital fund at the time, he goes behind my back, does 2 or 3 months worth of research, figures out like, what are the costs of goods? Who are the big players? Who's trying to automate Starbucks? Like, let's go into the coffee industry. And he comes back to me a couple months later. He's like, hey, that robotic coffee idea you had. I was like, well, it wasn't really an idea. Like I was just complaining. I was just making a comment that who's got time to wait for that? Like there should be, someone should fix this problem. So he goes, hey, no, I'll give you money. You should do that. So that was actually like his first, like me as an engineer, I have to live in the realm, and this is especially my corporate life, was like, how can things break? How can things go badly? I have to have a very pessimistic mindset of everything so that you can detail A, detail B, cover contingencies and what happens if this, and like you have to think in that very kind of pessimistic, weird, negative world. And so like, not to say that I didn't believe, but his urging of me of like, hey, I'll put in the first $50,000. You should do that, and like I believe in you. So that was a big moment in kind of my entrepreneurial career. Was Dan, my buddy, we'd been working together for a couple of years, and just what can we do as a business together? So his belief in me really jump-started Octane Coffee, and he did the early kind of business analysis. Who's out there? Who are the competitors? This was, say, late 17 into 18 and early 19. It was CafeX and Briggo were obviously the two big names back then. Briggo's now been acquired by Costa Coffee. Costa Coffee Bot is what they kind of flapped into. And then CafeX. So this was Austin, Texas, and Silicon Valley, San Francisco. And so we saw like, okay, this is proof of concept. They're out. They physically, things can work. They run. Okay, what can we do that's different, that's better? And so everybody else that we saw in this realm and kind of everybody else that's followed has really led on the let's make a cute walk-up indoor vending machine.
Right.
And so like we totally think there's a market for that. Office parks, train stations, airports, convention centers, downtown spaces, like a walk-up, it does make sense. We think there's a market for that. But us, we're in the Midwest, so middle of America, drive-through is always king. So you see McDonald's, you see now it's Chick-fil-A is wild over here. It's Starbucks drive-through. Like back then, it was crazy. So this was 2018, 2019, early pre-COVID ideas. And it was like, hey, why don't we go bigger scale? Why don't we go outdoor, standalone? We can make a cute little package, stick it in a parking lot, and have this thing run fully automated. So that was the original vision of Octane Coffee from the get-go. And I kind of had this fuzzy idea of like, well, it's going to be a big rectangular box. It's going to be kind of ugly, but here's what we'll do. And so we bought the first robot. We bought the first coffee maker. I think it arrived early 2019. So we had robots making coffee as of like April 2019. Cute little put a lid on, put some syrup in the cup. Like we had the very basics way back then. And this is obviously pre-COVID. So the world, like back then, you got to remember, you couldn't download an app to reserve a table, order online. You couldn't do any of those things. So like what we were proposing was this app-only experience, start to finish, fully automated. So it was going to be app-driven, no humans involved. You had to order on the app. We were going to ping things on GPS and time stuff so that you could pick up your order on time. It would be hot and ready or cold and ready as it could be. And so back then, this was a radical idea. We thought we were going to have to drag people kicking and screaming into our vision of this kind of clean, futuristic, different experience. So we're building the first prototypes, cute little tabletop, rickety wooden 2x4 table up into more bulletproof, like proof of concept. We had an option to launch behind the counter at a local coffee shop just to get some cycles on the machine. Like we wanted to figure out, how's this going to look? How's this going to work? Let's test the app. Let's get like repetitive cycles. Like we wanted to run 10,000 cups through this thing. What's going to fail? And like, I constantly tell my guys, as well as just like the mantra of our business is you don't know what you don't know. So you have to sometimes run headfirst into a new problem that no one has ever really solved. And so like, yes, there's now 50 or maybe even more companies that are doing this, but back then, like there were like the three of us. And like there was no here, like no one, we still don't like no one shares, no one talks, like this is still very siloed. But like there was no one to talk to in the industry. So a lot of the stuff that we kind of retroactively developed and integrated with stuff that was already welcome to doing food tech, pre-fabricated equipment, basically buying parts and pieces and tubes and fittings and valves and tanks and pumps and integrating it backwards into a system. So we kind of had to build that whole thing from ground up. But back in, this was late 2019, we had the option to go in the back of a coffee shop. Things were kind of dragging. The deal didn't look very good. So we ended up pulling out of the deal in November 2019. COVID hit literally 3 months later in early 2020, and the whole world basically stopped. So thank our lucky stars, like we were about to spend $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 of our own money, all bootstrapped up until that point, to get this thing launched. That building that we were going to go into was shuttered for 18 months. Like that would have been poof, done, death. That would have been the end of Octane Coffee. So like, I don't know, thank our lucky stars. That's just how it worked out. But so we pulled our equipment back out. We were building stuff actively, and we were running through an accelerator up until this was the G Beta accelerator out of Milwaukee and just Wisconsin area as COVID hit spring 2020. So our vision was always to go drive through. We were just trying to step into it. How do we get bigger and bigger and basically remove the risk, test it at each phase? You saw the world in COVID rapidly shift to grab and go, curbside, to go, app ordering, contactless, like
Yeah.
all of these things was exactly what our business was designed to do. So it was very cool to see, like, not cool to see, but just like the technology that we were developing that we thought was 5 or 10 years away is now tomorrow. If you didn't have those things, if you didn't develop and pivot and make it through COVID, your business was over. So like, and now all of a sudden, customers, the way that people are knowledge, like the way that they want to interact with a brand, with a company, is very much in this hands-off, clicking on your phone, app ordering, on demand. Can I even get it delivery? Like there's these steps of convenience. And so like our play is we sell time with a great cup of coffee. We sell not sitting at Starbucks for 20 minutes and waiting in line. We have regular customers today. We've been in operation 2 years at our first location, picking up in 10 seconds or less. Like people barely tap the brakes. It's comical. I have video of it. We'll share at some point, but it's almost funny that like the line is always empty at Octane Coffee because people are in and out and on with their life. Like there's no line, there's no FOMO. It always looks like we're dead, but it's because we're literally pumping coffees through and no one ever stays. So it's this funny problem. But so through 2020, we ended up locking in our first big kind of investor, venture capital, as well as some angel investor round, built the first big prototype. And we, of course, run headfirst into you don't know what you don't know. But the world, and call it 2022 into early 2023, there's no game plan. There's no checklist for building what we've built.
Yep.
Like there isn't just one of the dirty secrets that I'm sure everybody knows in this industry is anything walk up, cute, indoor, all these coffee machines, coffee robots, they're all vending machines. At its core, you get certified as a vending machine. That's how you can plug into the wall. That's how you can plug into water. That's how like municipalities, cities, regulators, people that own the building, they're like, well, what are you going to do? Well, I'm putting my vending machine in your lobby and this is how it's going to work. Like that's the agreed upon checklist for how to do it. It doesn't exist when you're a standalone building out in a drive-through. So we basically had to go through what regulatory bodies are important, which ones, and like it gets, I wouldn't call it dangerous, but don't ask a barber if you need a haircut. Don't ask a government official if you need their approval. And this is like this, it gets dangerous really quickly where they're going to figure out a way to make it their problem. Oh, we need to make sure this is safe. We need to make sure this and that. And so they get into this, well, what are you? So like we spent 6 months, a year trying to figure out like, what have I built? What have I built? How am I going to get certified? What are the bodies? How do I get through and get it's ultimately just paperwork, right? It's a CYA. Somebody's got to cover their butt and say, hey, Octane Coffee, Adrian has done his homework. This is safe. This is approved. It's not going to blow up when I plug it into an outlet. It's not going to contaminate the local city water supply. It's not going to back up the sewer. Like it is designed and engineered. It's a product. Here you go. Here's your paperwork. We'll sign off on that. So we had to figure all of those things out through 2022 and into early 23. We landed that very first container, as you can basically see on our website, getoctanecoffee.com. It's a 20-foot shipping container. That is the first robot, the first coffee maker that I had way back in 2019, plus a bunch of other stuff, obviously. But that got put on the ground January 2023. So then we booted up some software, finished dialing in the app, getting stuff ready to go, start selling coffee slowly, quietly, early 29, or it was, no, this would have been May 2023 was our first like sales to random customers off the street, right? And so those early days of Octane Coffee, like this was the Wild West. It was a fun time, but it was a crazy time in that there was, we don't have, back then, we didn't have a test environment and a production environment for hardware, for software. Everything was prototype and everything was run what you brung. Here it is today. So we'd be up for an hour selling coffees and then we'd crash the robot or we'd crash the software or, okay, it's broken. So we'd shut down. We'd talk to everybody that rolled through, like, come back tomorrow, come back tomorrow. So it became like the first couple of weeks were just, it was madness. It was fun, but it was like, okay, well, this is fixed. Okay, this is fixed. This is not crashing anymore. Okay, this is great. But then you'd like dig deeper and you'd find new problems that would then break. Oh, crap. We got 8 cars that are all showing up at the same time. How do you figure out which one's Karen, Bill, Tony, Jim, Tom? How do you get them in order so that they're picking up in order? And early day, God, it was so funny to think of like the scramble. And welcome to startups. Like you pivot, you do what you got to do. We gave away a lot of free coffee in those early days to keep people happy and get just time on system. So that was early 23. We went full. So like we had 6 months or so testing, tuning, proving, building out. And so like, I also want to say when I landed the shipping container in that parking lot, so built the whole first unit myself. So designed, manufactured, sourced all the pieces, got all the contractors, built the site with the contractors, landed the container. It was myself full-time and my programmer half-time. So it was 1.5 people that got the first container open, basically.
That's the complete team.
That was at that time, 2023, was 1.5 people.
Oh, man.
So not to toot my own horn, I do a lot of stuff. So then as software was getting booted up, Chuck, one of our investors, Chuck Kubiak, joined our team as our COO, helped immensely with just like productionizing, professionalizing, like bringing us more corporate, like, because we were just 2 guys, right? So Chuck joined the team. Dave Rashke, our VP of engineering, joined the team that summer. So then we had 4 people come. October 2023 is when we went 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, basically lights out 24 hours a day. Like the robots in there making coffee. We stop by once a day, clean stuff, restock stuff, but otherwise we're out of there. That has been almost like 18 months to this point. So we're coming up on 2 years of full open sales. Welcome to Wisconsin and Milwaukee. It's cold. We got vicious cold winters as well as hot summers. So it's been great to see 2 events of each to really like, what do you need for life support? Yeah. What do you need for air conditioning? What do you need for heating? What do you need for cooling? How do you keep the water from freezing? How do you do all these little things? So like, it's a constant, you don't know what you don't know, but you just have to be comfortable in that environment of like, what do we got to do tomorrow to keep it running? What do we got to do in a month from now or 6 months from now? What preventative maintenance can we do? What tweaks and tunes and little things? But to get that set, to get that done, to get that dialed, and like today, it runs and like we don't think about it very much, right? It's funny to think of a year ago or 2 years ago, like that was my life, was basically sitting in the box, watching the robots do everything, worried that a customer was going to have a bad time or something was going to break or making sure that it was okay. Where now it's like, I go to bed and I assume the robot's going to work all night and you wake up and everything's fine. And you build and develop that trust with the system. And so through, let's see, 2024, we locked in, started raising some more money. So this is our seed round. We ended up locking it in by the end of the year, 2024. We raised $3 million successfully. A bunch of the checks and stuff were just literally getting inked as of New Year's Eve. So we're now a couple months past that, but we've basically raised $3 million successfully, moving forward to launch 2 more locations. In the meantime, through 2024, our team has grown immensely. So like now I think we're at 14 or 15 full-time guys. We've got 4 senior software developers working on all of our various systems. We've got our original programmers still with us. So Lucas, I love him to death. We've got a bunch of summer interns that were with us through the summer who have now kind of continued on as co-ops. We've got a handful of part-time people that do marketing and our Java tech and our cleanings and stuff in the day, like on our daily stuff. So like, it's been wild to see in the last, say, 1.5 to 2 years, going from 1.5 people to a team of 20 at any given time. It's crazy. It's wild. It's good things, but it's new problems. It's new. How do you deal with HR? How do you deal with vacation policy? How do you deal with this and that? Like, it's all these new problems that are not, how do I get the darn thing built? How do I get it running? How do I make customers happy? So it's been interesting, but big rambling history of Octane Coffee. One more thing. So we are, through 2024, we prototyped and have now built, it's basically 95% done, our what we call Generation 2 kiosks. So it's all the lessons learned from the very first one. Some throughput bottlenecks that we knew were there and evident in the first one are now removed. And basically, it's 200 drinks per hour capable. Like, this thing is fast, this thing is bulletproof. It's got all sorts of new features and drink types and customizations and all sorts of cool new tech that, like, I just could never do in the first one. I wanted it, but I could never get it, whether it was dollars or size or physical problems, or just like, this is minimum viable prototype. Get it out, get it running, we'll iterate and build on it. But this is basically the turnkey, ready to go. We want to build 5 more of these units. So it's sitting on our shop floor as we speak. It is going live, say, in the next safe numbers, 90 to 120 days, live to customers here in the Milwaukee area. And that's going to be the basis for us moving forward from a manufacturing perspective. It's a good platform that we can build a bunch of things on. It's got some modularity. We can change a couple of components around, and making sure that we're ready to sell units to customers, whether that's early partnerships, joint ventures, things that we're working on right now, or franchising is another big viable thing that we're working on with one of our investor groups, who's a franchisor themselves. So, like, franchising Octane Coffee, we had a list of 2,500 people that have reached out over the years, and really just in the past 12 months, of, hey, can I buy a box from my hometown? How quickly can you sell me 25 units to Buffalo, New York? Like, we've had crazy, crazy requests. A lot of them are US based, obviously, but we've had Middle East, Europe, Africa, Australia is a crazy market. For us, Alaska is a crazy market as well. Like, it's America, hard, right? But it's so far away that it's like, might as well be the other side of the planet. But apparently, welcome to their crazy climate and the lighting, and it's either really bright or it's really dumb. They drink a lot of coffee. So they love drive-through coffee because they got to survive up there. So, no, we've got very cool things coming in 2025 and beyond. Like I said, we're looking to build 5 more units this year. We've got contracts like in being written right now with a couple of our investors that want to be franchisees, investors that want to be joint partners. So now we're definitely ramping production. So I would say at current moment, the software is dialed, the hardware is dialed. We are getting ready to ramp into volume production. I mean, this is still boutique. It's still kind of onesie twosie, but building 5 or 10 that are all the same is pretty much on our radar for late 25 into early 26.
Wow, that sounds really, really inspiring, man.
Thank you. And it is not easy. So I always laugh with people like, you talk to everybody. So, like, coffee with robots, how hard could it be, right? But then, like, as a team, we laugh at, like, hardware startups, right, versus software. A traditional hardware startup like we are, traditionally underfunded, 10 to 1, maybe 15 to 1 to start to software.
Well, there used to be times when Zoom Pizza were getting enormous hundreds of millions, but they're no longer here. Both the times and the Zoom Pizza.
No, for sure. And just hardware itself, like, it is so capital intensive. You got to dump a lot of money in, and it's good people, it's good salaries, you got to have the team to be able to build this stuff, and you don't know what you don't know. So you test and try and tune and try to make things work many, many times. So, like, the iterative process is real, costs money to do that. So, like, that's traditionally hard. We're also we're the Midwest, so we're not coastal. We're not getting Silicon Valley money. We're not getting New York money. I would say, yeah, had some chats, but nothing yet. So getting money in the Midwest and being a successful middle of the United States startup is difficult enough. So then I always try to impress, like, to our team that what we do is like links in a chain, right? So you've got the hardware, you've got the software, you've got the marketing and branding, you've got the commercial real estate. Where are you going to put these things? How do you get leases? How do you get the right spots? How much should you pay for a ground lease? Like, how do you do this? City zoning and approvals. So, like, all of these links in the chain, you can't have awesome hardware but crappy software. You can't have great customer app, but then your hardware doesn't make coffee. Or you can't get commercial real estate sites. So, like, this is links in a chain where our team, we all have to move together to these next levels where, like, you can't overcompensate on one of these things. You have to be really good at all of that. And that's where the trick comes in, or coffee with robots, how hard could it be? But it's really business fundraising, like there's 7 to 10 different disciplines that you really have to like hit good to make it anywhere.
Right.
So no, it takes time, it takes people, it takes a lot of headaches and a lot of weird stuff, but it's sometimes you're running around, what nail is sticking out, and you got to figure out who's going to hit it with a hammer and what's the hot issue that's keeping everything in the chain from moving, and you really have to target that and go.
Who were those people who believed in the idea and invested in that? So you mentioned your friend invested $50K to start. You mentioned the final round.
Yeah, so Dan Voll was our earliest investor. The 2020 round that we raised was about $400,000, kind of early pre-seed, like, let's get this proof of concept, right? We had the robot, had the coffee maker, but let's build the first box. That was Lancaster Investments out of Madison. It was Tundra Angels out of Green Bay. So this is very much like Wisconsin and like some smaller angel investors that say 50 grand each, $25,000, and like we built up that first round. I think total funds raised so far is something like 4.3 million. This latest $3 million round was basically lead invested by a family office out of Atlanta, Georgia, who traditionally is in, say, the residential and commercial real estate space, also loosely connected to a franchisor themselves. So they basically saw like, hey, we got all these developments, all these parking lots, all this extra space. How do we make some more money? How do we get into the franchise game? And they're not traditionally coffee people. They're not traditionally restaurant people, but they saw, well, I can buy these boxes way cheaper than I can build a traditional Starbucks and Dunkin', whatever. I don't need staff. I don't need any of this. Like, this is the future. Plus, our footprint is just, it's tiny. It is absolutely tiny. So the first box is what's a 20-foot shipping container. So it's 8 feet wide by 20 feet long. It's 160 square feet. The smallest cute little coffee shops that are around us would be a Caribou Coffee. They call it the Caribou Cabin, is 600 square feet. They're 4 times bigger than we are. They still have a lobby and a bathroom and a kitchen and people inside and all that. But like, we can fit in a tiny spot that traditionally, like, no Starbucks, no Dunkin' Donuts, no Caribou Coffee can go into because they're physically too big. They need 600, they need 1,000, they need 2,000 square feet for some of these big build outs. So like, we can be flexible. We can go into existing shopping centers, parking lots, malls, things that have excess rows of parking. Like the joke is they're out by the road. No one wants to park in the back row and have to walk all the way into the stores. But that's the spot we want. We want to be out by the road, the best visibility. The utilities are already out there. We want ease of access, ease of exit, getting people in and out safely off a major roadway. So like, there's a lot of weird competing things of like, it's traffic, it's demographics, it's who your customer is. It's, are you on the morning side of the road versus the night side of the road? Like, you don't want to be on the afternoon side of the road when people are headed home and they don't need coffee anymore. So like, and not to say this is negatively, but the coffee consumer, drive-through especially, they're so fickle. They're not going to turn left and then have to sit at a light and turn left again. So like, they're just not about to do it. So it's this like weird psychological things that like, what makes a good site for us? Like, there's all these little triggers that like you have to hit good, or this site is not going to pop. This site is not going to make sense.
What is Octane Coffee from the technical point of view? What is the core technology behind that?
Yeah, so the core technology. So we pride ourselves in using as much off-the-shelf equipment as possible. So coffee makers, the robots themselves are also off the shelf. Anything that touches cups, lids, syrup, beans, milk, like food type items is already basically FDA rated, food safe, ready to go. So all the tubes, fittings, pumps, those sorts of things, which makes our certification much easier. We can basically just give the bill of materials and say, everything's rated, everything's good. Here's how we use it. We're not doing anything stupid. Here you go. But at the same time, we do tons of R&D, design, and manufacturing. So on this, we call it a box, a kiosk is really like probably the best name for it. This next box that we're building, I would say there's only a handful of pieces that have been outsourced. We do all our own design. We do all of our own 3D printing. We do all of the sourcing for all the various, like, we need motors, we need gears, we need belts, we need sensors, cables, electronics. Like, you just buy it off the shelf, anything that's good to go. And then Otherwise, we run CNC router for a lot of our stuff. So like anything plastic, we're basically doing in-house. So all the pickup windows, all the mounts. We did our early prototyping for like, call it, it's a big table that holds all the equipment, is now converted into a weldment. So it's a big steel weldment. We have a shop 10 minutes down the road that does all the weldments as well as powder coating for us. So like thinking towards back at my days of Chrysler and Harley, where like at Chrysler, we were popping a car off the end of the line every 42 seconds. So it turns into what type of manufacturing line, what type of process, your supply chain to build these units. And in the beginning, it's going to be one every 4 months. And then it's going to be one every 2 months. And then it's going to be two at the same time per month. And then it's going to be three. And then it's going to be five per month. Like you hit these milestones of what are the suppliers, like what's the lead time, what's the costs, how many can you have just on the shelf ready to go? Because certain things have different lead times. Like we work with shipping containers, so this is like a Connex, like a shipping container coming across from China, from Europe, from wherever. We're getting them out of Port of Chicago, Port of Milwaukee. We've got a guy that's cutting them up, welding them, putting in doors, putting in window, putting in air conditioning unit, a couple little things for us, interior package, and then shipping them down the road to us. So we get like a finished, ready to go box at a very good price, but he takes 8 to 12 weeks per box. So it turns into like, when do I have to release him? I can get coffee makers in 6 weeks. I can get most of my electronics in under 2 weeks. So it turns into like, where are the supply chain bottlenecks? But as a company, as our ethos, it is try to find it, source it somewhere else, like before you build it yourself. The horror of that, like the thing becomes nobody else has solved the problems that we have. So a bunch of the stuff we had to build custom. Not a lot of these, say, robotic coffee vending machine competitors, like cute little walk-up ones, put a lid on. So back then, we had like, there isn't a machine that just, oh, you can buy it off the shelf. It puts lids on cups and here you go. No one built one. So we had to from scratch. And of course, now we're on revision 15 of it. You know what I mean? Iterations and revisions over time. Like that's a really weird, unique problem to store 1,000 cups, dispense one lid at a time and make sure they're not stuck and they're not crooked and they're not over here and they're over there, that they're clean, that they come onto the cup and they get placed and they're like seated, because you don't want to give a lid that's halfway on to a customer. So like there have been iterative steps to get us to the bulletproof reliability that we have today, but no one made a machine for that. Like we had to develop that ourselves. So there's like plenty of little things in between. A lot of our, say, like soda, the soda system, the syrup dispensing system. So you want a vanilla, caramel, hazelnut, syrup shots in your drink. A lot of that stuff, as I'm sure most people are doing, is borrowed from the soda fountain industry. You're borrowing tanks and pumps and fittings and tubes and nozzles and things like that. And you're just kind of retrofitting your controls and getting it into the cup a special way. So we do the same thing, just at massive scale. So like we were not about to reinvent a super automatic espresso machine. Like it just doesn't make sense. So like wherever possible and thinking towards, I want to build a bunch of these. So building one versus building 5 versus building 10 a month, you got to lean on a supply chain that already has machines ready to go. Okay. They also have clearly done their own reliability testing and just making sure their machines are as bulletproof as they can. Stuff always breaks. It always, welcome to the world. Hardware, unlike software, stuff wears out. Pumps, seals, gaskets, like things do wear out. Heaters, little sensors, things like that. Like they wear out. So having great partnerships with great companies that already have spare parts on the shelf, preventative maintenance kits, technicians that can literally come out and fix it for you versus like becoming the expert at a specific brand of coffee maker doesn't make a lot of sense. Versus if I've got 5, 10, 100 of these units out in the wild, you got to think at a different scale where like you're not running out if the robot breaks, if the coffee maker breaks, you're going to be calling the local coffee maker tech. We can remotely shut it off, diagnose it, shut it, like make sure no customers are going to be affected by ordering a drink that they can't get. But at the same time, like the local coffee maker guy can get there in a couple hours, probably get it up and running and limping through. If not, it's parts in the next 2 or 3 days and you get it up and running. Like that's way faster to react than we as a big company could ever react to any of those 100, 500, 1,000 locations we ever get to.
Right.
Our thing is like work with the best companies that already make great, bulletproof, reliable products that are worldwide, and just work with them in a kind of cool, unique way. So we've got a great relationship with Bunn, BUNN. It's obviously an American company that makes great coffee making equipment. Like they've been in business for, I don't think it's 100 years quite yet, but long time. Well known. Like a lot of the coffee you've probably drank is off of a Bunn machine in big corporate coffee shops. But they brought us in, and it was a great, cool partnership where they get to look into the future of what their customers are going to ask for 5, 10, 20 years down the road. But that's the stuff that we're asking for now. Hey, we got computers. Can we talk to your equipment with that? Oh, well, it's got a computer inside, and we think here might be a protocol. And all right, let's see what we can do. So like they get to work kind of hand in hand with us, where we get cool access to the latest, greatest, best machines that are already, like I said, bulletproof, reliable, ready to go make good drinks. But then they get to glimpse into our world of, hey, Octane Coffee is asking for this weird control protocol or status monitoring, or what about preventative maintenance or error codes, these little things. They're spooling up behind the scenes for, like, call it the IoT revolution over there, so that their stuff it's already got an Ethernet port. You can kind of port most of the stuff up, but it's things we ask for are the things that other customers are going to demand 5, 10, 20 years from now in big food service agreements.
What kind of coffees and how many milk types does Octane serve?
We've got 4 milk options for any of our drinks. So whole milk, skim, almond, and oat. We will be adding half and half creamers very soon. So our upcoming Generation 2 kiosk has got frozen blended drinks. We've got nitro cold brew. We've got all sorts of hot chocolates, matchas, other kind of hot powdered style drinks. We've got a full suite of espresso style drinks, fancy lattes, cappuccinos, flat whites, Americanos. We've got awesome standard drip black brew coffee. So we've got 3 different hoppers of that. So we can basically bean to cup on demand. From the cold coffee and cold options, we've got all sorts of we've got caramel, mocha, standard black cold brews. We're mixing them with oat milk. So we've got some really cool creamy style coffee drinks coming out. We've got 12 different coffee syrups, 12 different soda fountain syrups, and then we've got a full soda fountain setup as well. So we've got carbonated water and still water. We've got energy drinks, lemonades, teas. We've got a cola, we've got a Sprite, we've got all sorts of kids options in the middle. You can blend in all sorts of different flavors and things like that back and forth. We've got cold foams at the end of the line. We've got we've got powdered toppings at the end as well. Could be marshmallows, little cookie crumbles, some sprinkles, some cinnamon. We're trying to dabble and figure out exactly what our lock-in with the menu is. Clear cups as well as paper cups. Inside of the clear cups, we've got the capability to drizzle like a caramel sauce and actually spirograph inside of the cup in really cool patterns because it's all done with a robot. So there'll be some cool options there. It is a lot. I should say in the food items. So we'll have some donut holes, some other bakery type stuff. We'll have farmer's fridge food jars with yogurt, salads, wraps, granolas, little things like that, more grab and go style food. Probably have some juices on board as well, which is Healthy Roots. They've got a handful of good cold pressed juices, all pre-bottled and ready to go, so it's not us pouring anything. So it's going to be a big, deep menu. I think in terms of like full SKUs before you customize any of the items, it's something like 60 to 75 SKUs.
You need to have a really good user interface to fit it all.
Good user interface. The app is awesome. Definitely now it's got multi-location, so there's going to be unique menus at each location and perhaps different pricing depending on where you end up. But making sure that you're not ordering something that's not available at that kiosk. So there's definitely some GPS and location-specific stuff there. We've got the loyalty and rewards program is all dialed in, working on adding Apple and Google Pay very soon, so those will streamline checkout process. And definitely looking to like really dial in that customer pickup window, making sure that it is like 10 seconds or less is our current where we're at right now. Like we're looking to make this 5 seconds or less. So removing the QR scan requirement, layering different technologies to really give a magical drive-through experience at the window where you just pull up, you grab your drink, you drive away. And it is as seamless and as magical as it can be. So we have a great relationship locally to Milwaukee with Stone Creek Coffee. So they've been in business almost 30 years, well known in the Milwaukee area for having some of the best roasted coffee. I think at a certain point he was up to 15, 16 cafes. I know he lost a couple during COVID, and I think he's put a couple back on since then. But Eric Resch is the owner over there, amazing partner of ours. And he did invest in the company in one of the early rounds. So he's been great, helping out with menu, helping out with pricing, helping out, having his technicians come over and spend days with us to dial in our machines for the best quality beans, like the best quality and like outgoing product that's coming in with his beans. So no, great relationship with them. There's definitely discussions of at a certain point, we outgrow their ability to supply us, right? So like if we've got units on the West Coast, the East Coast, there's just no way that he's going to be able to ship beans out, UPS, FedEx, whatever, to the coasts and keep them fresh and keep it all that. So like he's even worked with us, like, what do we do when we get to that level of scale? Do we bring roasting internally where we're packing, shipping, sending stuff? Because at that point, the relationship is basically like we're sending cups, lids, beans, syrup. Like you've got the Octane coffee equipment, it's only going to work with this specific set of consumables. So having some good control in the system, but also us being the supply chain partner for a lot of our for the JV franchise as we grow, what do we do with beans is definitely a topic. So there's talk of going out to external like big roasting houses, doing our own kind of white label beans. But for right now, the Stone Creek relationship is great. We love it. Our customers love it. Like, and it's funny to see that like Stone Creek Coffee traditionally is a sit-down cafe, sights, smells, ambiance, baristas. Like they don't have a drive-through at any of the 15 locations. They literally don't have a drive-through because he doesn't want it. So a Stone Creek customer can now come to Octane Coffee and get it in this drive-through, 10 seconds or less, really convenient environment, but still have that really good premium quality that they like and know. So it's funny to see that like we're not a direct competitor. We're more aimed at someone that goes to a Starbucks, a Dunkin, a Caribou, a more corporate coffee, but we can bring them back into locally roasted, locally sourced Stone Creek beans in a cool, new customer experience.
So you've been running your location for 2 years already. What are the results?
So we've got, don't quote me, I think we're something like 42, maybe up to 45,000 cups through system. So this is for us, like it's a good amount of cycles to really figure out what's going on.
Yeah.
Obviously the more we get it, you can figure out your timing and figure out your customers and your demographics. Right. And we've got a morning peak and a little afternoon kind of pick me up. We do have a handful of customers that are coming overnight. We're open 24 hours. So like there's some second shifters, third shifters, people getting off of work that just want a little pick me up, or people getting like, we have a decaf option, so we got a handful of people that love to swing by and get a latte in the middle of the night, but not be kept up with all the caffeine. So we've got offerings there as well. I would say like there's been lots of lessons learned. So this prototype location number 1, it's a little sleepy, it's a little quieter, it's not doing hundreds of coffees a day or anything crazy. I think our record was 188 coffees in 24 hours. So that was like really good, really cool. Like that was a stressful day. We had one guy just sitting in there all day, making sure like we're not running out of milk, we're not running out of beans, we're not running out of this. And like that was a wild couple days getting through like a big marketing blast and rush with our grand opening that happened. Otherwise, it has been a great platform for us, like blessing and a curse. It's a blessing that we're not doing hundreds of cups of coffee a day because we just breaking stuff all the time, trying to keep the darn thing alive. This has allowed us we can shut down in an afternoon for 2 hours and put in some new equipment, test out some new products, getting in and being able to like dial in the software, dialing the hardware, getting things like really bulletproof and having time to do that has been very important. But at the same point, like without launching this first location, without going through the seasons, understanding like, what do you really need to keep something warm enough so that it doesn't freeze, cold enough so it doesn't overheat in the summers. What product mix is the customer going to want? Definitely Wisconsin, like, we're not selling cold drinks when it's negative 10 degrees outside. And likewise, we're not selling any hot stuff when it's 100 degrees outside. So like, we have to be good at both disciplines. And that's just from a product mix, from an offerings, from a what does the customer want to buy perspective. So it's been great to learn all the lessons we needed to learn. There's also been things of like, ooh, I wish I had this. I wish I had that. I wish I had this weigh scale or this sensor or this feedback loop or this camera or this other thing that we now have implemented all those lessons learned that we wouldn't have had we not done this first prototype location and had it open and running for 2 years to dial into generation 2 has all those fixes, has all those features, has all that software built from day one that we wanted and wished and like slowly inched up on the development through running Gen 1.
What is the customer feedback received through those years?
Yeah, so customer feedback. So we know that the customer experience is a little different. It's funky. Like, so people see it as a drive-through and they pull up and they're looking for the squawk box that you're going to talk into and order something. We don't have one. So we watch on the cameras and we see what's going on. Onboarding a new customer, like, we have to do it with signage. We have to do it with education pieces. We have to do it with part of our marketing is like, hey, download the app. Do it from the comfort of your house. Do it at work. Do it when you're running errands. Like, order ahead, order not in the drive-through lane, and you'll have a much better experience. And so that as customers come through, we have cameras all over, inside, outside. Like, we've got some customer interaction, like at the window, we've taken video of like when a customer pulls up the first time, they're trying to figure out like, okay, how do I pick up my coffee? They scan the QR code, they pick up the drink, and as soon as that window opens up, you can always see that there's always this moment of like, they look around like, is that it? Can I leave? And then they drive away. And it's just I wanted the customer experience to be a little mysterious, to be a little magical. And so, like, to quote, the best technology should be synonymous with magic. I want someone to have this kind of, how does that work? What's inside of there? Like, I want there to be some mystery behind it and some magic that they'll tell their friends, they'll tell their coworkers, they'll tell their family, and they'll say like, hey, you got to try Octane Coffee. Like, it's different and weird, but it's awesome. And so like, we actually get a bunch of cool feedback from customers, from investors that like the coffee's good. So the quality's great. Our pricing, we try to be 10 to 15% cheaper than our locals, like Starbucks, Dunkin, Caribou, for an equivalent item. So we don't want to be crazy premium. We also don't want to be the half price latte guy. So that was another thing that I think a lot of the competitors, we don't want to be in the race to the bottom, right? Like, how do we source cheaper beans, cheaper milk, cheaper this and that? Like, quality just plummets. And then all of a sudden, like, you can't demand a premium price. So we've definitely put a big emphasis on premium quality ingredients, premium machines, premium drinks, and being able to keep our price competitive, but as well as we don't have tipping. That's the other joke of our app is like, we've had people throughout the years stick dollar bills, stick like a tip back into the window, and then we'll find it like blowing around on the floor inside. And people don't understand that like the robot doesn't need tips. So we've actually stuck them up on the wall, like, and the funny joke is the robot in the first cell, his nickname is Frank. So anytime I talk about Frank, it's the robot inside the first cell. So Frank's got a bunch of tips up on the wall for his eventual retirement someday. So, but the customer experience, it's probably once every week, once every couple of weeks, I'll get a picture. People text me from other drive-thrus, investors, partners, people we've talked to, where they're sitting in line at Starbucks. So it's like out the windshield through their steering wheel, and you can see they're behind like 10 cars. And they're like, without fail, it is, you've ruined drive-through coffee for me. Like, I know Octane Coffee exists. I know I can get my coffee in 10 seconds. And I know I shouldn't have to sit in line here. So like, it's this mental shift of, once a customer does it once or twice and they get that 10 seconds experience, they're like, why would I go anywhere else? Like, I can't get a 10-second experience anywhere else. And so ironically, on Generation 2, we're actually working to eliminate the QR code and make this like 2 seconds. Like we're aiming to make it even faster. So for us, the customer feedback, the customer requests. Obviously, we get a lot of, hey, can I do this? Can I do that? Oh, hey, I wish this drink was a little sweeter, or oh, that had too much syrup in it. So like, we're constantly taking in customer preference, like hearing their feedback and dialing in our recipes and our machines and making sure everything is still running good. At that same point, moving towards we just launched a second version of our app. So our new version is out on the App Store if people want to download it and play around with it. We are going to be adding a ton more customization, saving favorites, where like you can really get granular and dial stuff. In the beginning, like we have way more capability and way more kind of knobs to turn than we let on with customers because I didn't want to scare people. I didn't want to have like, no offense to Starbucks, and even admittedly they're talking about this right now, their menu is out of control. You can't even figure out how to customize, add, like you can do some crazy stuff in there. But all that means that like every single store you go to has to have all of that crap behind the shelf, and it's going to go bad and it's going to get wasted and just the consumable nightmare of the whole thing. So like I wanted the first version to be keep it simple, stupid. I didn't want to have 49 buttons to hit to make a latte. I tried to keep it rather simple. So then now we're slowly adding in like the user requests back into, well, one of the big ones, and this was an odd one to me, temperature preference is really, really big.
Yeah.
So everybody wants their drink to be right about the same temperature every time. We have tons of capability, but I always thought, like, to me, a Starbucks coming out at 155, 160, this is Fahrenheit, is too hot. It burns my tongue. I can't drink it. I'm like driving, trying to blow under the lid. Like, it's dangerous. It's not what I want. But then 1 minute, 2 minutes down the road, it's perfect. Like, that's drinkable. I aimed for ours to be, say, 5 or 10 degrees cooler so that you could just grab it out of the window, sip it, drink it, like that immediate gratification I wanted. But there was plenty of customers who were like, my latte is not hot enough, or my black coffee is not hot enough. So there are certain people out there who, I don't know, their tongues must be roasted, but they want black coffee, 190 degrees. They want to drink lava. And that's fine. I can do that. But I always thought that was dangerous. So we're going to have, do you want the regular temp? Do you want extra hot? Do you want cold? Because then the flip side of this becomes kids. You've got mothers, fathers, parents going through the line, kids in the back seat. You want to get them a little treat. You want to get them a little something. So we do have a handful of kids options, but then our like hot chocolate, the kids hot chocolates, we definitely do it at a lower temperature because those kids are just going to sip off of it. And I do not want, like, I have 3 kids of my own. I know what they do. They're animals. So like, it's this temperature preference. But then there was a couple times where a lady would order a hot chocolate in the middle of the night and she'd be like, this is lukewarm, this is cold. And I'm like, that's because you ordered the kids one. That's because you ordered the kids version. And like, sorry, it's cold because I didn't want to burn, like, not cold, but it's drinkable, not crazy hot. So it's temperatures coming to the app. Everybody seems to want things a little sweeter, a little more coffee, more like caffeine. Caffeine's a crazy thing. So we've adding espresso shots. We've got a handful of energy drinks and stuff in our system now. We're going to be adding the ability to like overrun the pump a little bit. We're like, you want 20% more caffeine, you're going to octane boost it. Like, we're going to have that option. So we're slowly adding that customization back in. One of the other big streamlining throughput, like signing up the first time, we just recently added Apple, Google, single sign-on. So like creating an account is much more seamless instead of, oh, I need another email and password that I'm going to forget. Like everybody does, right? So we've eliminated that. We're going to be rolling out Apple and Google Pay sometime in the next 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks. So that's going to be at launch, getting ready for this next kiosk coming out where like that's another streamline of, okay, your first time, you got to download the app. You got to get set. You got to figure out what you want in the menu. Then all of a sudden you're typing in 16 digits off your credit card that you got to dig out of your wallet or your purse. Like, it's all these little details, but if you can Apple Wallet, Google Wallet, click, go, pay, seamless, like that's where we're headed. So like Look, we're already fast, but we're working to make ourselves even faster.
And how does the actual pre-order work? Does the robotic element starts brewing your coffee immediately? It receives the order, or you set the timing?
So everything is bean to cup. So we don't make anything ahead of time. We have no like urns. We're not keeping anything hot. It is literally bean to cup. So everything is as fresh as it can be. So you order ahead on our app. You can order from home, from work, from errands, typically like 2 minutes ahead of time. So like as long as you give us a little bit of lead time, we can hit the delivery on time. We are pinging, just high level, we're pinging GPS. We're figuring out how far away someone is time-wise. Okay, a latte takes 84 seconds to make, right? So we know the timings and what's in system, so you can start doing these calculations and like load analysis to figure out like, okay, to make Jennifer's vanilla latte, it's going to be 84 seconds. We're pinging her GPS and figuring out, okay, when she gets 84 seconds away, we release it into the queue.
Amazing.
We make the drink. The robot is putting it in the window, boom, placing it down, getting out of the way as she is pulling up. So it is quite literally made right on time, every time, for you, on demand.
This is ideal.
It's perfect. And then for us, nothing sitting, getting cold, nothing sitting with ice in it, melting. It's super ideal. But that takes a lot of crazy science. So it's available, like the technology exists, but you have to do it in cool, unique twists. Like you got to do some funky stuff to it. Like Google Maps API is not accurate enough. So like, go ahead, try it. It's going to be very expensive. You're not going to like that bill at the end of the month. But it's also like, it's not accurate enough. You got to do other fun tricks. So no, we've got on this next unit, we are, how do I describe it? Trying to not give away our secrets, but you got to layer different technologies on top of each other to achieve, okay, we've got a 99% chance that we know exactly that this is Karen and this is her double vanilla latte in the window. And as soon as she rolls up to the window, right now, we have a QR code that you have to hold your phone out, scan it, and like confirm you're you. We're going to eliminate that on this next one. So the goal is you should be able to pull up. We know you're there. We know that you're in this line. It's Karen, then Tom, then Jill, then Tony. And we can set the windows accordingly. So like there's a whole shuffle. It's weird to think like when you're looking at GPS data, you're really looking further and further into the future. So now all of a sudden you look at the load in the machine. Okay, there's 5 orders up or 10 orders up that like you start allocating resources at these given times. Oh, I know I've got 2 almond milk drinks that have to go to the same machine because that's the only one that has almond. The timer starts clocking up. So all of a sudden you're looking further and further into the future, but you're going to be less accurate when someone actually arrives on site. So there's all sorts of crazy, the last 30 seconds of any customer journey is all sorts of weird automated decisions to say which drink goes in the window next. And it is really, really bulletproof and good where it can sort out before we would ever know how they're going to arrive in what order.
And how many pickup windows do you have?
So right now we just have 4 pickup windows. And this was another strategic thing that we've got. We wanted to remove any reason that someone would say like, oh, it's not convenient. I can't reach out of my car and it's too high, it's too low. Like we wanted to keep these levels. So we actually have a high row of windows and a low row of windows. There's 2 of each. They can hold 4 drinks each. But so like here in America, a lot of SUVs, a lot of trucks, a lot of vans that are kind of higher, right? You sit higher, your windows are higher. And then we've got the low row that is a coupe, sedans, convertibles, cars that sit lower. And so we actually have 2 different window heights that you set in the cart when you're checking out so that you can just grab your drink at level with you to your car. Amazing. And that works pretty conveniently.
And you've got functionality of a multi-drinks order that I place an order for several drinks for my family and they're all given to the same window.
So we've got 4 drinks can go in the same window, kind of a diamond pattern.
Yeah.
The window themselves is actually a big round cylinder. So the robot is loading it on the close side. And when you pull up, it rotates around and is presented to you as close to the vehicle as it can. So it actually helps the robot a little bit from a reach and it helps the customer. That rotating mechanism you got to do all sorts of crazy stuff like, what if someone puts their arm in there? You don't want to pinch someone's arm. So you got to have a clutch. You got to have a mechanism. Like, you have to think to this nth degree of like, what can go wrong? What sensors, what cameras, what things you got to do. But it does do 4 drinks per window. We did make the windows on Generation 2 a little taller and a little wider, just so they got some more clearance, and making sure that like if we get bigger, larger diameter items in the future, that they would all still fit. We are adding food items to this next one as well, and then we're adding the ability to open multiple windows at the same time. So right now it's capped at 4 per order, but we have customers that regularly just do 4 in an order, and then build another cart with 4 in an order, and they pick them up at the same time. It still works. It does that. We're going to work on, it turns into a scheduling problem. Like, how do I lock down 2 windows? The next one's got 5 windows on it, but how do I lock down 2 windows to get out 8 drinks when I'm trying to roll a customer through effectively every 16 seconds? Bang, 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 bang. How many drinks do I have to, like, what's the timing differential? I'm going to lock up 2 windows that I can't use until all 8 drinks are in there. So it becomes a problem of resource management, basically. Like, can you make that decision and not impact other customers in the line?
What do you do with the drinks that were ordered but not picked up?
So we have a delete procedure. So the robot can basically pick them out of the window and drop them into a trash can. There's some funny anecdotes there. We have, internally we call it the precision trash can. And so the problem became the robot, right? It goes to a predetermined position and it drops the fork into the trash can and it goes off. One day, somebody was in there, bumped their hip on the trash can and moved it out of position. And so the robot went to do the delete, but it didn't come off the forks. And he lifts up, and the next move is he does this kind of spin that we call the karate spin. And he threw the cup across the kiosk. And it was a mocha, so of course it was nasty chocolate syrup. Like, it was a mess. But it's one of those like, all right, how do we make that never happen again? So now we literally have like bolts in the floor that trash can, punk, like it doesn't move. So it is the precision trash can.
When we're talking about robotics, what kind of robotics you use?
So we use off-the-shelf robots. So we do industrial type robots. They're definitely not, we're not using FANUC. We're not using anything crazy high end. We do use a combination of 4 and 6 axis robots. We have a bunch of other Cartesian stuff that we do as well. So like this is weird ancillary type stuff, but we try to stick to off the shelf whenever possible. We've got a great relationship with our supplier. I'm trying to be coy. I don't want to give away the secret sauce about kind of what we've done with their robots, but they do retain all original factory warranty, spare parts, original software. Like, we're not too Frankenstein. We've done a handful of things to make them function better for us in our purposes. And especially it's like, we do a lot of remote access, right? We're not on site 24 hours a day, but we want to be able to remote in, not necessarily steer the robots around, but be able to do cool on the fly things that, like, from a factory perspective, they were never capable of. So we had to rewrite a bunch of stuff.
You've been mentioning that throughout those years, you served more than 45,000 cups. Do you track the rate of returning customers and frequency of order per customer?
Yep. So we've got, I believe the latest stats that I know of is it's 1.2 drinks per order. So it is every now and then there's the 2Z, 3Z, 4 type drink in order, but it's typically 1.2 drinks per order. We haven't run the numbers recently and tried to figure out all the details on returning, how does marketing run, like all those sorts of things. We're basically in big preparation to do that on Generation 2. So we've let the marketing lapse a little bit for Gen 1. It runs, it's good, but like, we're not trying to spend thousands of dollars a month to really pump orders through that system in preparation that we'd rather pump that dollars into the grand opening for Gen 2. So for us, it's like, I haven't looked at the marketing and the dollars there. We do know from a dollars, I forget, is it customer acquisition cost? A Starbucks, they're typically looking at spending, say, $14, $16, maybe up to $20 to attract a new customer who's going to be a repeat kind of habitual Starbucks user. And they think that the annual value of a customer is somewhere in the $400 range. This is someone who comes by a couple times a month. So this is not a daily person. This is definitely not a high frequency user. I mean, we definitely have a couple of our customers in the hundreds of orders. I think one of them is definitely over 200. We might have up to 300 orders in 2 years. So I mean, he's there not every other day kind of thing, but like we've got certain. It turns into like, what is the metric for? Well, you got a user that comes once or twice a month, or maybe once or twice a week, or there's super users that we've got probably 100 super users that come through twice a week, 3 times a week, up to maybe 5 times a week.
And does the mobile application provide any loyalty program options?
So we did just recently, we switched over. We had a goofy, like it was giving out free drink tokens was the earliest reward system for the longest time. It is now switched over to a more points-based, earn them, redeem them style system where it's got double accounting ledger in the background. That just rolled out, I believe, a month and a half ago. So we are earning rewards. I forget what the metrics are, but it's like every 10th or 12th drink is free. It almost functions like a punch card, but it is points based on dollars. So like you spend bigger dollars, you can redeem stuff early, those sorts of things.
Okay, Adrian, let's talk a bit about the business side of your project. So, OCTANE Coffee, is it a manufacturer or is it an operator, or what is that?
Right now, we're both. Right now, we are both. So we built the first unit ourselves. We also operate it, maintain it, clean it, restock it ourselves. We do have plans to open a couple more corporate locations. It's more proof of concept, testing, tuning, dialing, and getting the marketing plan, getting stuff scaled, and showing that like this is a good, viable, successful business. As we move forward into late 25, early 26, we're definitely shifting into more of the manufacturer and tech support while letting someone else run the business themselves. So whether that's daily maintenance or that they're physically paying for the equipment, the site prep, the rent, those sorts of things. So moving into more of a manufacturer relationship as opposed to, we don't really have ambitions right now to run 200 corporate locations and grow that way. Like we would rather sell equipment, service equipment, tech support, and let other people. I mean, we need one person a half hour to an hour a day. You might as well outsource that to a franchisee, to someone who wants to buy 3 or 5 units in their major metro, and then they're hiring 1 or 2 part-time guys that stop by and they drive around in a transit van, a Sprinter van, and basically restock and clean the units daily. So you could basically sit on the couch and earn money with having a couple of OCTANE Coffee locations. So I would say right now we're both. We're an operator and a manufacturer. We need to operate the units in order to learn the lessons we need to learn, to automate, to remote monitor, to basically keep these units up and running as remotely as we can before we can start selling them to strangers, people who are not necessarily as tech savvy as we are. Like we need to be tech support behind the scenes. We need to be the guy behind the monitors. Like we have so much data about system, about customers, about sensors and cameras and all these different feedback loops that like if something's going wrong, if something is trending the wrong way, the machines have got automatic ability to make adjustments and can maintain drink consistency. So like a latte is a latte is a latte from day to day to day to week to month to month. But even within a day, they're making small tweaks and adjustments that we're monitoring. And like if all of a sudden those adjustments start trending off, we know something's going wrong with that machine before customers are ever affected. So we can get in there, we can do the maintenance, we can check on, diagnose, troubleshoot, get it up and running again, order spare parts if necessary. But we're going to have to provide that as almost a white glove style service to people that are ultimately buying these units from us. So they want to go to sleep at night or go to and like not have to worry about, oh no, are my 5 units running? Is everything good? Like basically like we want to white glove monitor remotely as much as we can behind the scenes, and like we can redirect, we can bypass, we can shut machines off, we can keep things running, and then even reach out to customers, be like, hey, sorry, we ran out of almond milk in the middle of the night. sorry, here's some rewards credits, here's a refund on your drink. You can go ahead and order something different. Maybe it's oat milk. We have that as well, but we don't have almond. And like do all those customer interactions, either automated or with a human remotely, that the franchisee, that someone else, a joint venture partner down the road wouldn't have to do. So like it is truly as white glove as possible.
And do you consider bringing a manufacturing partner into the process, a third one, maybe even overseas, or you want to do it yourselves?
I would say potentially as we grow. Here in the small scale and here in the next, say, I would say 2 to 3 years, we will probably keep as much stuff in-house as possible. Like that's our background is manufacturing. A lot of our leadership team has come from that realm, and basically like we feel comfortable building things. At a certain point, we're going to hit a demand bottleneck where we're going to have more demand than we have supply to build these things. So there is definitely going to have to be a manufacturing partner, an outsourcing partner, an overseas partner. Eventually, haven't had any discussions, haven't really worked, like, haven't had to push that hard yet, but that's definitely coming in the next couple of years.
And what is your capacity, your personal capacity? How many units can you manufacture?
So right now, out of our current facility, we're probably in the 5 to 10 units a year. That's where I'd be comfortable saying, like, today, if I had orders and they were coming in, like, if I was ready to go and let her rip, that's probably where we're at. We need to staff up. We need to probably move into a slightly bigger facility. We're at 8,000 square feet now. You'd probably end up being in 20, 30, maybe 50,000 square feet at that point. And I would say a tripling of our staff if we wanted to get to 50 units a year, 100 units a year, that sort of thing.
Okay. And the lead time per one unit is?
Right now, I would say probably 4 months. We can definitely make a duplicate of what we built in about 4 months. The goal is as we streamline, as we document, as we do a couple of these, is definitely get it down to 1 per month, 2 per month, getting it up to 5 per month. Probably not going to happen at our current facility just because it's full. We're busy. So like there's no room to put 10 shipping containers under our roof right now. But in the future, we're definitely headed that way.
And what is the business model you offer your customers?
Yeah. So right now I don't have any like perfect details to share. If people want to reach out, we can definitely have some conversations, but we are looking to build 5 more units this year. A couple of them are not locked down, but definitely like very soon to being locked down through our investors and other joint venture partners. The typical relationship that we see moving forward would definitely be us providing the manufacturing. If they want customizations, if they want, oh, I want this equipment versus that equipment, there's going to be some lead time, things that need to get done. But we would effectively sell a turnkey shipping container style box, interior package, all the plumbing, all the electrical, all the robotics, all the coffee makers, the refrigeration. Like this is a turnkey coffee shop inside of a shipping container with a facade package and lighting shipped down the road, like turnkey, ready to go. A partner, someone that wants to buy one of these units from us, would definitely be doing their own local real estate. Hey, I want to put this on a street corner in my major metro. Say it's Tampa, Florida. Hey, here's some street corners. We can definitely help from a data end of like, okay, you should put it here. You probably shouldn't put it here. Giving you some recommendations, looking at traffic, looking at demographics, looking at other things that we know would make a good, successful coffee shop really pop in that area. But the contractors to do that, like we would help and say, hey, you need water, sewer, electric. Here's your foundation plan. Here's what you need to build. But then bringing in local contractors, like we're not sending people from Wisconsin down to Tampa to physically build in the ground. So we'll let them work with local contractors, but then basically lining up that site build to complete. So the concrete, the asphalt, the utilities stubbed out of the ground. We would ship the building, the shipping container, out of our facility up here in Milwaukee on the back of a flatbed truck. You pick it up with a crane, you drop it down, you plug it in, and you're selling coffee potentially within hours. That would be the goal.
That's cool.
So it is a completely prefabricated, indoor, ready to go. Should be turnkey once you plug it into all the water, sewer, and electric, as well as you get internet service. Like obviously your internet connected device. You get that all set to go day one. We should be able to fire it up, get all the HVAC running, get all the coffee makers running, purge all the lines, make sure things are looking good, and basically start selling coffee. Everything should be ready to go at that point.
So electricity, internet, water supply, and sewage. That's what you need.
Correct. And in the future, we are working on other models like that would bring some of that utility need down. So on a typical day, so just according to like what we've estimated, so if you're going to run 1,000 coffees a day, you need 100 gallons of fresh water. And water is very, very important for coffee as well as some of the soda fountain drinks that we do. Coffee is 98, 99% water. You got bad quality water, your coffee is going to taste like crap. So the water is very, very specific. We need 100 gallons a day. So that's either you pumping in city water, well water. It's going to have to go through water softener, reverse osmosis, get it cleaned up, a little mineral addition back into it, get good coffee water. Or you're running around with a van that has a water tank inside, and 100 gallons of water is 800 some pounds. So it turns into this like kind of dangerous driving thing. If you're driving to 1, 2, 3 locations, you're going to have thousands of pounds of water in a van every single day. But that keeps you from needing to hook up to city water. From a drain sewer perspective, we probably kick out 5 gallons of water a day. Just machine drains, cleaning, RO off the thing. Like it's not many gallons, you'd be surprised. So that can definitely get put into a gray water style storage tank like an RV uses, where you pump it out or you throw it in some of the landscaping. You can definitely drain it that way. Electric is a big one. We run a lot of electric power. All the heaters, all the electricity, or the HVAC, all the heating, all the coffee makers, all the refrigeration, like it runs on electricity. It is possible to run a off-grid giant diesel generator, but that's not what the future sounds like, right? It's probably too much demand that you couldn't put in batteries or any sort of like storage system. The roof itself is so small that there's like not enough room for solar. So it becomes this weird, and traditionally in the cost of utilities, the electric is like 5% of the cost of everything else in terms of getting it put in. Electric is really, really easy to get. Pull it off a pole, drop a transformer, get it out to a meter. Like it's a very inexpensive part of the full development. So usually you plug into grid electric. And then internet, the demands there, like KBS, whatever, like you don't need fiber, you don't need anything fancy. We run typical like cable modems and everything like that. It's reliable enough for what we need. Like you'd be surprised there's not a lot of data that flows back and forth. So we've kept the kiosk very small, very, very blind, we'll say that way. Like there isn't a lot of crosstalk. It basically only does what it needs to do.
And how many drinks can a current setup serve on a single maximum load of ingredients?
Yeah, so single maximum load, it definitely depends on your SKU. If you're going hot drinks, cold drinks, like if you had a full optimized SKU, this Generation 2 unit, I think, is going to be capable of somewhere between 800 to 1,200 drinks.
Not bad.
On a full, like, load it to the brim and leave for the day. If you're doing more than that, stop by twice a day. Like, that's a good problem to have.
Right. Okay, so let's say I'm your customer. What it takes me to buy equipment from you?
Yeah. So I don't want to throw dollar numbers out there today, but
okay.
it is below $1 million and it is above $500,000. So it's somewhere in that ballpark. So if you wanted to buy, like we're currently looking for partners that are looking to do, say, 3 to 5 boxes over the next couple of years in their major metro, there's definitely economies of scale to this thing where if you've got just one box, it's a lot of trouble. It's a lot of maintenance and hassles and like having all the consumables and the storage and all that. If you've got 2, 3, 5 locations, you can kind of spread that burden. There's definitely economies of scale for the whole thing.
What will it be in total, including all the paveways arranged, electricity, connectivity, and everything?
So our goal is to basically have turnkey. You've got your outlot, which has got utilities, concrete, asphalt, all the water, sewer, electric, everything ready to go, that pad site to accept, plus the building should be under $1 million. That would be the goal.
Got it.
And this is drive-through capable, 200 drinks per hour, top line capacity, like without a restock, somewhere in that 1,000 to 1,200 cups. If you're doing more than that, stop by twice a day. Like, it's a good problem to have.
What about ongoing fees? Are there any in your favor?
There would probably be some, whether that's tech support fees, monitoring, that kind of white glove. If we're taking care of customers, if we're taking care of 24/7 monitoring, there's probably a little fee for that. From a royalties perspective, like we've obviously run our numbers from a franchising perspective, we're definitely keeping a lot more money in a franchisee's pocket. So like if you look at all the big boys, franchises are very cool that everything's public. So like an FDD, a franchise disclosure document, you can look them up for Dunkin' Donuts, for 7 Brew, for Scooters, for a lot of these other coffee shops. Like I think Dutch Brothers is up there too. Like you can review and look at their numbers of EBITDA and how they're breaking down what's typical rent, what's typical revenue, what's typical utilities, what's typical labor, what's typical taxes, what's typical losses. And so like you look there, labor on a low end is like 15, 18%. On the high end, it's up to 30. So we're almost immediately eliminating that whole line item and then replacing some of it. It might be 5%, 8%, whatever, with a tech support fee. But the rest of that labor is going right to the pocket of the franchisee.
Tech support fee and franchising fees?
Yeah, they're probably some standard, whether that's, it might be marketing, it might be there's probably a royalty that comes off the top, just to support ongoing operations. So we don't have all the numbers today. Like we are not, as of this moment, totally franchised. So that's a big no-no from the SEC. So I'll keep details a little slight there. But as we move into publicizing those details, I'll definitely reach out.
Okay. Got it. You've got any estimation when this moment might happen? This year, next year?
I would say it's probably late 25, early 26.
Okay, so in about a year or less,
it'll be
OCTANE Coffee.
It'll probably be less than a year.
Okay, got it. So in less than a year, OCTANE Coffee is to be commercially, publicly available for the audience, for the partners.
Correct.
Okay, what about white label options?
I've been asked that many times. I'm open to it. Like it doesn't bother me. It becomes troublesome in that we would probably end up having to figure out how to, because it's white labeling the building, it's white labeling all the consumables. Are they changing the beans and the milk and the recipes? And then it turns into the app as well. So all of a sudden, like you're really white labeling like 4 or 5 different things. There's big costs to that. Like if you got to buy just cups that are branded, hot cups, plastic cups, minimum order, all the sizes. I mean, you're looking at, it's probably $50,000 very quickly in just getting minimum order quantities to get branded cups, let alone signage, let alone an app that is branded and specific and different. And then behind the scenes, it's all the recipes and the menu and specific items and assets, pictures, text. Like it's possible. It just gets really, really messy. So I would say, yes, it's possible for a big enough partner that would want to come out, whether this is corporate partners, a Starbucks, a Dunkin, a Caribou, somebody big in the future, we would probably end up doing something like that. If it was smaller, hey, I want to run one shop and I want it to be Joe Schmo's Coffee and it's my brand and it's my whatever, but I'm only ever going to do one of them, it's probably going to be a high cost.
What about those big enough partners? Have they tried approaching you?
I can say, yes, I've had some conversations. I know what they're working on. I know what they're looking for in the next couple of years, and it's pretty close to what we're doing. So, yes, we've had some conversations. Can't really disclose much more than that.
But from your point of view, as an entrepreneur, like, would you be more interested in growing your own OCTANE Coffee brand and chain, or would it be a nice match to join Starbucks or Costa Coffee to be fully branded as and to be as a kind of equipment supplier and technical support company.
From our perspective, like, it's good to have options. It's good to be able to do the corporate thing, to do franchising, to do potentially corporate partnerships down the road. So it's good to have options. It also becomes a little bit like scope creep and optimization. Like, what is the priority? What should we be doing? What should we be focusing on? I would say that we've had some deep conversations with some of these guys about being the equipment supplier, the tech partner for this sort of stuff. I would say the industry is still a little early. Like, everybody that I've talked to in the coffee industry and the restaurant industry and just the franchising and just the greater industries at large knows that this type of product that is, cradle to grave, start to finish, fully automated customer experience is inevitable. They just don't know when. Is this 2 years from now? Is this 10 years from now? And there's this, call me when it works. Call me when you're ready. Then we'll make a decision. So, like, everybody's got their eye on it. Everybody's got their finger on the pulse. They're trying to figure out who's going to make it. And I think that there's probably going to be a couple players. There's going to be certain players that do cute, walk up, indoor, and just do that space really well. We think there's a viable market. We think it's awesome. It's just not somewhere we wanted to play. We think there's going to be plenty of winners in that realm. We think there's going to be plenty of winners in the full-scale outdoor drive-through. Like, we're also surprised that there aren't more competitors in this space. It's hard to do, so I'll tell people that, like, get prepared. There's a lot of stuff that you don't know. So I think that there's probably going to be a couple people that come out of the woodwork in the next couple of years. I think this level of technology is very ubiquitous 10 years from now. Is this as ubiquitous 5 years from now? Like, are we still at that very early stage of this curve? I think so. I think we're still at the early adopter phase. We're at the shaking dice, making bets. Like, we're gonna see how this works out phase. I don't think we're in the all right, pour gasoline on the fire phase quite yet.
Yeah, I agree. So, Adrian, based on your financial expectations, your partners' payback period is what?
So we're aiming to have return on investment. And so this turns into, like, how do you look at return on investment? If you want full, like, cash on cash return, so someone putting 20% down, they're getting a loan for the rest, and they want to get their cash back so they can roll into the next one, we're basically sub 18 months for cash on cash. Is kind of the plan right now, that as we see business plan, pro forma, things scaling. If someone wants true, like, return on investment, they're putting up $1 million and they want to make $1 million back, get totally cashed out, it's something like a 3 or 4 year return.
And how many orders per day?
So that would be, I think we were running numbers at 500, maybe 800 coffees a day.
500, 800.
Yeah.
I mean, you see this figure as is it reachable?
It's definitely reachable. So here in the Midwest, so obviously not the mecca for drive-through coffee, typical Starbucks around us is doing 800, 1,000, maybe 1,200. That's a typical one here in the Midwest for us. Definitely slower, sleepier than most. Out west, high flow drive-throughs, Dutch Brothers, Mercury's, Black Rock, Human Bean, they're doing 2,000 cups on a bad day. This becomes, like, it is very region specific. It's definitely, it's marketing, it's branding, but it's a totally different market, right? Like, it is practically a religion. Drive-through coffee is a religion out west. So we know that anything we do in the Milwaukee area in the Midwest is, like, not going to be crazy, not going to be spectacular. So we're trying to be a little conservative and just making sure that, like, we can hit those targets. Our equipment is capable, but these guys are doing 2,000 cups on a bad day.
And what is an average ticket in your calculations?
For us, I think right now we're running something like $4.60, $4.70, I think. And
4.6.
Typically, like, the first kiosk, and this is the one that we're running right now, does not have food items, does not have a lot of add-on additions, upcharges. Like, it just doesn't have the capabilities and the features. We're definitely targeting somewhere in the $5 to $6 range for Generation 2. We're going to have food items. We're going to have cold foams. We're going to have dry toppings. We're going to have all sorts of sodas and different cold coffees. There's definitely ways to get that ticket price up, as well as juices, teas, bakery items. Like it's going to be a much different, like we'll be able to do more dollars per ticket for sure.
Juices, it's going to be bottled or fresh juices?
It'll be bottled. And we've got a local supplier around here that is cold pressed, high temperature pasteurized, healthy roots. Great local supplier, and those juices are awesome. Super good.
And food items, is it something like meal or bakery?
Yeah, so we've got Greeby's Bakery locked in for, they've got some, I would call it like a donut hole. It's not a full-size donut, but it's a bunch of smaller little bites. They've got them pre-made in a cup with a bubble lid, so it's even looks like a coffee cup. It'd be great to fit in a cup holder, because you got to think, if we're handing somebody a food item that's going to have to go into their car, like I can't hand them a plate of food with a fork. The format really has to make sense, where it's small, packaged, isn't too perishable. Like you got to get a week, if not 2 weeks, shelf life out of certain things. Like we can't necessarily be doing crazy fresh food. Like that's going to go bad in a day or two. So we're not quite to that point. We are also working with Farmer's Fridge. They've got kind of these food jars almost, where it's got a little green lid, but they have pasta salads, regular like romaine style salads. They've got yogurts, granolas, wraps, hard-boiled eggs, all sorts of stuff. The thing that they don't do good is bakery. So making sure that we've got some bakery items as well. But those will all be on hand and ready to serve at launch.
Amazing.
Generation 2.
And you're gonna warm them up, or it's gonna be served cold?
It'll all be served cold. There's talk of heating stuff up. We've gone through and tried to figure out, like, it becomes a supply chain nightmare. So
yeah,
coffee and just the traditional items in coffee, like all the syrups, all the beans, all the milk, all that, like has a traditionally pretty good shelf life. Keeping milk in the fridge, checking expirations, like we're daily cleaning all the lines, that anything that touches milk, like shelf life there is pretty stable, as opposed to some of the stuff from Farmer's Fridge, some of the stuff like, if we want to source it ourselves, you got to have a licensed kitchen, you got to have it packaged and clean in the right format, and you're doing rotations all the time. Is it going to last 2 days? Is it going to last 3, 4, 5 days? It's probably not going to last 2 weeks, probably not going to last 14 days. So it becomes like a maintenance and logistics, like just expiration nightmare. So we've got other stuff that we've talked about, doing heat and serve sandwiches. It's an option. Like we as a company are very, hey, could it do this? Could it do that? Like, yeah, we can make it work.
Sure.
It's just at what is the return on investment there? I'm going to put in all the time, effort, money. Am I going to sell 2 sandwiches a day and it's not going to make any sense? So as of right now, there isn't screaming demand for it. But when people are asking, we'll figure out how to do it.
Is a partner allowed to use local ingredients, or is he supposed to be getting ingredients exclusively from you?
It depends. We haven't figured out exactly how those relationships should work. So back to the bean discussion of, there's a lot of people who have asked, like, oh, can I use my own beans? Talking with coffee shops. Can I use local beans from the local shop that I love? Like, yes, probably. We'll have to make sure the machines are capable, dialed, and like taste good with that slightly different incoming coffee. From a dairy perspective, we're not going to be shipping dairy from Milwaukee and making sure that it's all good. Like, you're going to have to locally source certain things, whether it's coming from Cisco, food service, whoever. Like, we'll have to figure those sorts of things out. From a other consumables perspective, like, we've got the system dialed and tested and proven with our cups, with our lids, with our syrups and other stuff. So like, we know all the parameters and how to dial and test and tune all those things. If someone wanted custom cups, I would say, well, go with the same supplier we went with, but you're going to have to get them custom printed. But like, to change any physical dimension, like, oh, I want to run these cups tomorrow, I think you'd be surprised. We went through 4, if not 6 cup suppliers early on to even find the supplier that ultimately went with, because cups were sticking together. As silly as it sounds, like, when you're running a system like ours that is 24/7, 365, you can't have things getting jammed, have things getting stuck, sending out 2 cups at the same time. Like, we had to go through all of this crazy in-depth consumables review of, are these lids capable? Are these cups capable? Are these beans capable? Did they get stuck together? Is it a humidity problem? Is it like powder? Some of our powder stuff for hot chocolates and other drinks, does it clog? Does the humidity get to it after 2 or 3 days and you got to unjam the auger? Like, you'd be surprised. There's so many
Yeah.
details that, to say, oh, can I use my own stuff? It's like, maybe it might go well, it might not go well. And at a certain point, if it's Octane Coffee branded, you should be able to go to any Octane Coffee, just like you can go to any Starbucks, any McDonald's, any other big name franchise, and it's a reliable, repeatable experience. Like, you're not getting some
True.
crazy local flair where, like, oh, I want my latte, I love my latte, I know what it tastes like. But then you go out to some other place and the coffee's totally different, and you're like, what the heck is this? This is not an Octane latte, right? So, like, there's plenty of discussions internally of, like, do we lock those things down? Are they really critical to our brand and our taste and our experience? Or are there things that we can open up, be looser with, and allow? So, like, we're in that level of discussion right now with some of these JV partners, trying to figure out where we're going to land.
And how friendly is your equipment to an operator who's involved in daily maintenance?
Yeah. So in terms of, like, the daily maintenance is, I wouldn't say practically automated, but you come in, flip a couple switches, all the robots stow and basically get to a safe position and then shut down, so you know the cell is safe. When you enter, you're basically starting up pre-canned cleaning routines for a lot of the coffee makers. So basically, you're dropping in tablets, disconnecting the milk lines, dropping in a tablet, letting it run its automated cleaning, and those are set at basically a 10 or 15-minute cycle. So once those are running, you're then looking around on our, we call it an HMI, the human machine interface, is basically showing you which lid, cup, syrups, like what has run out in the last couple days, what needs to be restocked, like what needs attention, what might be still full but damaged and not running right. Like, there's all these kind of weird in-between stages and statuses. So, like, effectively, the operator would just follow the on-screen instructions. Hey, make sure that you load cups in. Okay, you're loading cups. You come back and confirm, yeah, okay, here's my next task. Where it's, you don't want to just give someone a 20 to 50 bullet point list and assume they're checking everything every day. So you want to kind of keep it fresh and only check and only do the things that need attention. Hey, check the bean hoppers. If they need refill them. If not, move on. So, like, there's lots of things. Like, you can't just give someone a 50-point bullet list and assume they're doing it every day consistently. Like, you have to switch it up a little bit. Once a week, we come in for a bigger, longer cleaning where it's like a little bit more thorough. We're rinsing lines. We're doing, like, you're not tearing equipment apart, but you're basically, like, fully rinsing, fully purging, fully sanitizing, and sending stuff back in system. So, like, once a week, we have a good in-depth cleaning. Typically, daily, it's one person for about a half hour to maybe 45 minutes. And that deeper
That's
clean,
quick.
it's probably an hour, maybe an hour 20. So you're never there for 5 hours at any given time. It's an hour at a time.
It's fully comparable to maintenance of a standalone robotic coffee kiosk.
Yes, and we always think of it like a glorified vending machine, right? You're restocking the cups, lids, beans, syrup. Like, it's not crazy, it's not wild. We also have added tons of sensors and cameras and checks that, like, either remotely or just as things are going on, we're decrementing, we're checking inventory. We're like, on a given day, we're planning for a world where we'll have a guy with a transit van, a sprinter van. What should he pack in the van that day, right? So each kiosk should be able to give us an automated dump of, hey, yesterday I used this much stuff. You put it all together and you're like, well, I used 300 cups here, 500 cups there, 400 cups here. We're packing it all together in the van to restock it for that day. Okay, we used how many bottles of vanilla syrup? How many bottles of hazelnut? How many bottles of cherry? How many bottles of that? Like, really custom packaging the van for the restocks that day. Like, that's where we're headed. So there's all sorts of sensors, cameras, feedback, all other ways that we can increment, decrement, and understand what needs to get taken care of on any given maintenance schedule.
What about vandal issues?
Knock on wood, it hasn't been a problem. We have had, this is some funny footage of a couple drunk guys getting their coffee in the middle of the night, and when it spun around and presented to the guy, he's like, "That's the coolest thing ever!" And he's just like out screaming in the parking lot. So we have that video. But no, honestly, it's been good. We have cameras inside, outside. We're watching and checking the things that are going on. Knock on wood, there have been no issues yet.
Okay, got it. From the point of view of papers, this setup is what?
Legally, it is a vending machine. So we went the same way as everybody else. But the bigger thing is because you're outdoor, because you're drive-through, because you have to go through city zoning and approvals, you need a conditional use permit for the drive-through. There's all these little things that like we've had to go above and beyond. We are also UL electrical certified for, I think it's UL 751 is the vending machine code. So basically all of our wiring gets checked and certified by a third party to make sure that like, yeah, you can attach to grid, you're all good, you're not going to blow anything up or burn the building down. So everything's done safe in accordance to UL standards. But from a vending machines perspective, we work with NAMA, North American Merchandising Association. Great team of guys over there. And like, yes, our project is weird, but we've also asked them like, is this the biggest vending machine you've seen? Is this the wildest one? And they're like, no, we've weird ones. Like out here in America, there's I think it's called like Ice House or Ice something, where it's like giant ice maker, but physically like the building that it's inside of is much larger than what we've got, but it is also NAMA certified as a vending machine. So no, we definitely keep them on their toes. We're definitely, hey, can we do this? Can we do that? Like they have their construction standards and manuals and how they like to build things. But then a handful of our stuff, like there isn't a section about it. There isn't like, hey, what do you think of this? What do you think of that? And so it's typically like well, did you do it to manufacturer certification? Did you use the same tubes? Did you use the same wires? Yeah. Okay. You're good to go. But like they got to dot their I's, cross their T's. But they've been great to work with. So no, we are not a restaurant. No, we are not a building. So we don't need to go through all of that sort of stuff. But at the same time, there's some funky stuff that needs to go on with individual cities, individual municipalities. Certain ones care a bunch about weird stuff. Like, how does it look in the drive-thru? Like when I launched the first one, hey, first in the world concept. No one else is doing this. I'm the local guy. We're going to launch this in a parking lot, and here's what they want to. Here's what it's going to do. And I'm like, do you have any questions? Like, what can I answer about this? And of course, their only objection, they're like, I don't see any bushes on your landscaping plan. Can you tell us what kind of trees you're going to put in? And I'm like, you don't care about the robots. You don't care about the food. You don't care. And you care about the bushes? Yeah, we really need to know about those plants. And I'm like, really? Like that's your one problem here? But it's every city, every municipality is very different. So it's funny to see as we're looking at locations and as we're talking to people, you basically have to call up your local, like, oh, I'm going to go on that street corner. Okay, well, that's in town of Brookfield, that's in city of Brookfield, that's in Milwaukee, that's in South Milwaukee. Like, they're all different. They're all run by different people that have different opinions. So, like, certain guys are a little more forward thinking. They're a little more helpful. And they're like, oh, that's cool. Okay, like, we don't have anything like that, but we'll figure out how to get you in, right? We'll figure out what checklist we can use to get you there. And we've had one or two, rare, but one or two like, no, we're not going to let you come to our city. Amazon is eating the world. You're like e-commerce. You're going to destroy all the coffee shops. And I'm like, no. Like, we think that standard sit-down, mom and pop style coffee shop or even your local chain, like, we think that they're totally going to exist. They exist to have lobbies and bathrooms and place for you to have a meeting, sit down on your laptop, read a book, hang out with your friends and family. Like, we don't think that goes away. Like, we don't think that we replace that or destroy that in any way. Like, we're not taking baristas out of jobs. There's going to be plenty of places to do that. We simply operate in a realm that we strive on convenience, we strive on time, we strive on quality, that like we have a certain type of customer that just wants to get in, get out, get on with their life. So like that's who we aim to please. And so we don't think that that customer is going anywhere, going away anytime soon. And it's probably getting worse. That there's probably more demand for our type of service. So no, we think that other coffee shops, like we're additive to the system. There's clearly plenty of demand for coffee around the world. We think that we're just another option within the realm.
What do you think about competition? Who are your key competitors in terms of full automated solutions nowadays?
And that's, from our perspective, knock on wood, I haven't seen anybody that's approached and been very competitive at what we are doing. I haven't seen any fully outdoor standalone. Like, there's definitely some cool ones. There's definitely some companies that have raised a lot of money. There's definitely some guys that are attempting this sort of thing, but they're getting there, right? It's probably still a year or two off. So no, like we know that they're definitely coming soon. I would say from a traditional perspective, like we compete more against, say, a brick and mortar standard corporate coffee, Starbucks, Dunkin, Caribou. Those are the three big ones in our area that like we're competing against them. So like whenever we're doing a competitive analysis, okay, like what do their drinks taste like? What is their quality like? What is their pricing like? What, like when we do a competitive analysis, we drive around to drive-through coffee shops. Like that's in our minds our more direct competitor. So we're checking in on like Starbucks, Dunkin, Caribou. We'll go to McDonald's every now and then. They still have coffee. They still sell a lot of coffee in the morning. 7Brew is one of the more recent. They're not a startup. They've been established for. Do you know what 7Brew is?
Yeah.
Okay, so 7Brew. Do they have those in Europe? I don't think so.
No.
But they're cute, small, prefabricated building. So it comes in on a truck, drops down, like ironically like ours, but it is a kitchen. It's still staffed. It's got a bunch of little girls running around. But they have really cool, like blue canopy covered. It's 2 lanes. They're walking around with an iPad, kind of like Chick-fil-A, where they're taking orders ahead of time to speed things up. So by the time you get to the window, it doesn't feel so long, but it is a traditional 5, 10, 20-minute wait. But their drinks, so like locally here in Milwaukee area, they just launched one, I think 2 years ago or so. Now they're launching a couple more. Holy calories, Batman. They're sugar bombs. It's a lot of sugar. It's a lot of half and half. It's a very thick, creamy, iced whipped cream, caramel drizzle. Like, it's wild. It's wild. Dollars and cents wise, like it's very expensive too. Like it's a $7 or $8 drink, but I can see it. I can understand it. I would say one of the other really telling, and like this was an odd as they launched, Cosmix, COSMMC'. So it's McDonald's, but it's their like Starbucks competitor. So I know they launched one store maybe 2 years ago by now down in Illinois, early concept Cosmix store. Meant it was, McDonald's brand, right? So you can still get the Egg McMuffins and hash browns and the standard breakfast fare. But then you look at their drink menu and you think like, okay, this is aimed at Starbucks. They should have lattes, cappuccino, like traditional coffee shop stuff. Their menu is like radically non-coffee, as weird as it sounds. So it's slushies and energy drinks and pre-workout energy shots and blueberry this, and like their menu is the craziest, most colorful thing I've ever seen. And I'm scrolling through and I'm like, where's the coffee? Like this is supposed to be like, this is a Starbucks competitor, right? I'm like, where? And it's one little line at the bottom, like, oh, you want a McCafe, the black coffee, the McCafe latte or whatever they call it. Like there's one little line. It's like not even a coffee shop. It's wild. And so one of the big shifts and changes that like we're definitely experiencing, as well as just the industry at large, prior to COVID, prior to 2020, and just preference-wise, they were still running a very traditional espresso style hot coffee shop, right? They got black coffees, they got the espresso drinks. They're fruity, they're sweet, they're this and that. They're doing like cold brew, they're doing some iced drinks, but it's like 5 or 10% of their menu, right? Is like very minimal back then. Now, fast forward to 2024, 2025, 80% of a Starbucks menu that they sell is iced or cold. And a lot of it is non-coffee. It's the refreshers and the teas and the lemonades and I wouldn't call it soda, but it's like borderline soda, right? If you look at Cosmic's menu, it's very much representative of that. Like, okay, we got the standard coffee staples that if someone wants a coffee, we still have it, but it is very much like energy in a different format. Energy drinks, smoothies, blended stuff, lemonades, teas that have that little bit of caffeine, but not like a jittery energy drink will get you. Versus
nature.
So like Dunkin, Caribou. So Caribou is their boosted stuff. Dunkin, I forget what they call theirs, but that's Seven Brews got their own branded stuff. Like it's weird to see that. And I don't know if it's an age thing. I don't know if this is. I'm 35 years old, so I consider myself, like millennial, but probably on the older side of millennial, versus Gen Z, the kids that are younger than me. And now I'm hearing Gen Alpha, holy cow, 11, 12, 13 years old, that are, they're coming upon I should try a coffee, right? Gen Alpha. But like, I think they are potentially and this is the Instagram, the TikTok era where everything's got to be crazy marketing, colors, and cool stuff. And so like there's something to it. But like we as a company, when we're building stuff, we have to think, what is the industry going to need in 2 years from now, in 5 years from now? Like what equipment is going to be necessary? Because we're building a vending machine. It gets certified once, it's set it and forget it. You can make little tweaks and changes and little things here and there, but you do not have the freedom like you would at a traditional cafe, at a Starbucks, Dunkin, Caribou on the counter, where you can just pull out a piece of equipment, put something new in, train the staff, and all of a sudden you've caught up to the newest trend. Back then it was nitro cold brew, or it was soda fountain stuff and these lemonades. What's the next trend? So like we have to make sure that our hardware package is somewhat future-proofed and ready for any new good idea, right? Because it's kind of a set it, and like once you program it, once it's done, you're not going to spend all this crazy time to retrofit and really redo everything. So like from a design perspective, from a modularity perspective, from a software, like we have to be flexible, but that's way more difficult for us than it is for a standard coffee shop that they can just throw a new piece of equipment on the counter and be like, all right, Joe, tomorrow, here's how you make a smoothie. It's harder to train robots that way.
Adrian, you've been in the industry for quite some years already, and I'm really interested to hear your personal opinion. So we've been having Briggo in the market for more than 10 years.
Yep.
And so far, it's not all over USA, although they've got Costa brand and everything.
Yep.
We've got Starbucks with their huge budgets, but they do not have any robotics integrated or robotic concepts all over there. What is that? They don't see value in that. They are doing something but did not release it yet, or they're just lagging behind, looking into smaller vendors to do something.
I'm trying to figure out what I can say without getting in trouble. They're definitely talking about it. We'll say it that way. I think that there's a little bit of, we'll say this. Brian Nickel, right, coming from Chipotle now to Starbucks, definitely came in to revamp things, to change things, to alter the perspective of Starbucks. We know from our background of what he was doing at Chipotle was very much automation focused. He was automating, they were adding a lot of software, a lot of timing, a lot of the app and the rollouts, and even just from a hardware perspective, like they launched this crazy like avocado guacamole making machine in the back that took away a bunch of labor because they make a lot of guac, right, for their burritos. So we know his background and where he was going with Chipotle prior to coming to Starbucks. He says, so there's the he says and there's the he does. He says that he is bringing them back to the third space and they're simplifying the menu and they're really focusing on the team members and they're doing this and that, and he's appeasing the unions and he's appeasing the workers and he's trying to keep everybody happy in this period of turmoil, right? Their stock has been kind of going down. I don't know if it's been up recently, but like they're going through some troubles. It's hard to sell really expensive coffee when you get into these weird economic times like we're in. It's hard to sell luxury premium $9, $10 a cup drinks. So people go more back to basics. At the same time, we know where he comes from and we know what he's thinking about. And I don't know. I don't know what that looks like from a market, how it looks, right? The optics. If he comes out and says, Starbucks is going to automate and here's what we're going to do, the stock price might go up for a little bit, like, holy crap, they're going to do this. And if all of a sudden he's going to have revolt of all his baristas saying, you don't want us to work here anymore, and they all leave, right? So he has to balance these two competing things of technology, the efficiencies, the cost savings, the reason they would do it with, well, I need all these people. If I can't make drinks, I can't make sales. Bad experiences for customers mean my stock goes down. So he has to manage two different expectations from two different ends. So I would say they've chatted about things. Can't tell you anything.
What's wrong about Briggo? Why it's not booming?
Briggo, my early criticism of Briggo and CafeX, obviously two big competitors. They had been out, I think, 2013, 2015, right? Like 5 years earlier than us. Definitely set the stage, definitely set the market from that perspective. Briggo more so than CafeX. They gave the engineers a blank check and said, make the smallest, cutest, sexiest, most optimized machine ever. And from that perspective, they did an awesome job. Like, if that was your goal, you done it, right? You've probably seen inside of one of these things. Like, I've only ever seen it from the outside. That's an amazing piece of custom stuff. The problem there is everything's custom. It's very, very hard to build a lot of those. And so, like, part of my ethos and the reason we did the things we did was I don't want to be beholden to a manufacturer. They had a whole Foxconn relationship, and that was ironically going to be down in our neck of the woods. Got killed because of COVID. But anywho, that's tough. How the heck are you going to manufacture that and make them work and make them run and make them whatever? What they've ultimately done is, in the Costa Coffee relationship, they've kind of retooled and changed and whatever. And I think you've probably seen some of the Costa stuff. As soon as you open the front door of it, there's just a super automatic inside. It is like they've reversed from custom to kind of our way of doing things, like work with a vendor, get a super automatic, build all the custom stuff around it. But when you open the door, there's a super automatic inside. So my criticism there, as well as the criticism of CafeX, was their early launch locations were in airports. Airports, in my opinion, are the most transient of population on planet Earth. Bars, restaurants, coffee shops, any food service style business lives and dies on repeat customers. You need a stable population that comes there a couple times a week, that loves you, that spends money with you, that sticks with you for the long term. You cannot be doing onesie-twosie sales and marketing and trying to bring in fresh people every single time. Like, this is where a restaurant gets into a death spiral. If their quality goes down or the prices go up and the regulars stop coming, you're in a death spiral. Now, all of a sudden, you got to attract new people who then might not need your food or not like it and not like paying that high price, and they're never coming back. So, like, it's this sticker shock. The airport population is either someone who's got 2 hours before their flight, they're on a layover, they want to pull out their laptop, they want to pull out a book, they want to sit at a coffee shop and smells, ambiance, people, the hubbub. Like, I get it. You got 2 hours. What are you going to do? You're going to pull out your laptop or a book. Or you're running to your gate. You're late. You don't have time to sit in line at a Starbucks. The CafeX and Briggo experience, at least back in the day, was wait, stop, download an app, figure the whole thing out while you're in a hurry, order a coffee. There's the gimmick of the robot dancing and doing a couple things, but like you might never come back through that airport ever again in your life. You're never going to use that app again. You're never going to use their service again. It's great from a marketing perspective if you just want 100,000 or 10, 200,000 people to come through and use your system one time. That's fine. But you're going to live and die on repeat customers. And that's the worst population you can ever do. So that was my one, I wouldn't call it a criticism. I think what they've built is cute and great and awesome. I always just thought that was the wrong place to do this. It's kind of counterintuitive because everybody's like, well, but an airport's busy all night and the shops are closed. And what if people want coffee and whatever? It's like, yeah, then a robot makes sense. But you need a lot of robots. You need about 50 of them around the various terminals to make it make any sort of mark. Like you can't just have one in one weird wing and hope that it's going to work out. Like it didn't. And so I think like your point, like why didn't they take off? Why didn't they grow earlier in the beginning and or now fully fledged? Me personally, like, will we get to that market? Maybe. I think there is a market for every office park, every train station, every airport, every convention center. I believe there's a market for it. It's just tough. Like you can't take the level of technology that we've built and squeeze it back down to the Briggo box. It isn't possible. There's physically too much crap. So like you get this limited menu. You can order 8 items. It can like kind of CafeX back in the day. They didn't even put a lid on. It's cute. It sells coffee once or twice, but it isn't we've always said a powerful daily tool that actually saves you time and money. So that's been my criticism.
Yeah.
I think what they've built is awesome. I think what they built is cool. And I have some similar like Artly. Artly's great. I don't know your opinion of them.
They're one of the leaders of the market as of now.
Yeah, no, for sure.
In terms of buzz, in terms of running locations, in terms of interest, they grow.
In terms of dollars, holy crap, they raised start engine round at 100 million valuation, which is ludicrous. And like knowing what we know, I'm like, how the heck can you justify that? But anywho, they did. Good on them for raising money. Collaborative robots are cool. They're definitely from a safety perspective, from a retrofit application. Okay, I got a cafe space or I got a walkable space and I want to put these robots in. I want them to do something. Okay, great. They're slow. They are really finicky in certain ways. They can definitely articulate and like if that's what you want is a really cool, artistic, fancy latte foam art. Like it can do that for sure, hands down. Can it do it at any time scale that makes any sense? Probably not, but it's definitely a cool application. So no, they're, I would say, one of the leaders in terms of, last I checked, they were at 9, 10 locations. They might be at 15 or 20 by now, definitely growing rapidly. Yeah. There's always, I remember back in the day, there's always the Luckin coffee debate. So you probably know Luckin coffee.
Yeah.
So
yeah, absolutely.
They definitely had a lot of turmoil about the fake made up sales back in the day. That was a rush. I chuckled because we saw that data back in the day and we're like, there's something not right here. Like, no way this is going on. Because of course, it's like, well, what are they doing? They were talking about automation. They were talking about mobile and order ahead and this sort of thing. But like something was fishy, and then you figured out what was wrong. I think they've come back. I think they fixed their stuff. Okay. But are they trying to automate? I don't know. I don't know if they ever jumped back into that. There was definitely discussion back in the day. So will one of these bigger, more traditional outfits do it? Like it becomes, it's this weird race of, is it going to be a startup like us that prioritizes and only does that and then jumps on board with somebody else to really jump this up? Or is it going to be a legacy player that then tries to do it themselves, right? And it's the question of, is it going to be a startup that makes it, or is it going to be a legacy person that squashes all the startups? And from what I know, from what I've seen, from the people I've chatted with, they don't know what they don't know. And they might think, oh, I'll just throw 50 million or $1 billion at this and it'll all be good and I'll do it myself. And it's just, I don't know. That's not their game. That's not what they do, right? They're really good at marketing and branding and the human experience and the real estate. And this is a different animal. Like, this needs a lot of engineers like us. And it's bigger than our team, right? For any random legacy competitor, someone who's been successful in the past, to jump behind this. So we've had a couple conversations. Like, we know what their thoughts are on it, and it's further off than you think. There's a lot of details there. Then it'll happen. It's just when.
I'm sure that within next few years you'll be getting proposals to buy out your concept, because it's always easier for those guys just to have somebody who is already capable and integrate it into something.
Yeah, they want to see something that's proven. They want to see something that goes wrong, that is capable, and they're like, all right, I want 100 of those. Go. Yes, sir.
International expansion plans, especially to MENA, Saudi Arabia, UAE, where there is a great demand for drive-through concepts.
Yeah, so I would say we don't have anything immediate on the books in order to expand over to Middle East, to Europe, things like that. We've had plenty of conversations. Like, I think within our reach out list, like, there's probably 20 to 50 different kind of Middle East and around different people who have chatted with us over the years. Lots of interest, lots of great coffee, and like, they're rapidly expanding and building cool stuff over there. So no, definitely it's on our radar. It's just a when. There's been enough pull and enough people locally and within the United States, so that's kind of our focus for, say, the next 12 months. But as we dial these in, getting them certified for overseas shouldn't be a big deal.
Yeah. Okay, Adrian. You're a tech entrepreneur. You're an engineer. You've been in the business for many years. Nowadays, there are quite many young entrepreneurs who are entering the niche, who are interested in food robotics, who are considering either to create their own solutions or to invest into existing concepts and make business in that. What would be your message, your advice to those who are considering entering this niche?
Yeah. I would say like the entrepreneur's journey, there are ups, there are downs. You got to have an emotional intelligence and emotional like resiliency to get through. And so, like, you might see me today this one time and say, okay, well, from day one, he just started working and it was better. Every day was better than the last. And now he's up here. And I would say, no, that is far from the case. So, like, to start this business, I set myself up years in advance, living well below my means, saving money. I was a landlord for 7.5 years. So I owned a rental property and rented some of the other units to keep my living costs low so that I could take a risk on a business like this. So the money that we had saved up that we put into Octane Coffee in the first couple of years was all meant to be like actually buying a house for my wife and I. And so, like, you have to be able to know your limits, know what you're capable of, set yourself up well in advance for the financial, the mental requirements, the time, the effort, the stress. Like, take care of yourself in the meantime. But every day is a unique challenge. And like, I like to impress to my team and to my family that, like, it's all about being 1% better. And so I have ironically, there's a sign on my wall that says win, lose, learn. And so I've won plenty of times. We've scored deals, we've scored investments, we've gotten things done, like, things have been great. I've lost plenty of times in the meantime. So, like, there's been deals that we were working on that got approved, that got approved, that were going to be paid, that contracts were being signed, and day of, oh yeah, we're not doing that anymore. And it's like, what? and you got to dig yourself back up. And it is this roller coaster where you have to have, like I said, emotional resilience and just understand that like where you're going, your vision, your passion, like your goals might be further off than you think. And that's okay. And you have to be able to weather those storms, get through those losses, take those lumps and keep moving and know that what you're doing is worthwhile, it's beneficial, it's going to be good for you, your family, and your company, your employees, all those sorts of things. So just making sure that like you have to believe in yourself. And so like there was a big quote, I think it was Guy Kiyosaki, like some things must be believed to be seen. And so it's funny to think back on the earliest days of Octane Coffee. I had this fuzzy image in my head of, okay, it's going to be this box, and it's going to work this way, and it's going to make people feel this way, and it's going to do these things. And you kind of you reverse engineer, you go backwards. Okay, well, how am I going to accomplish this? How am I going to accomplish that? Who can I work with? Who can help me get there? And just being able to have the vision, but to see it through. So now here I am launching the first location 2 years ago. We've got 2 years of runtime. We're about to launch our second location, and having still that funny vision in the back of my head of like what it could be. It's wild to see how far we've come in the meantime. So like it's about little wins. It's about the day moving forward, but like win, lose, learn. You're not going to win them all. You're going to lose plenty. And a lot of it is shots on goal. Like in terms of raising money. So like my advice there is it is shots on goal. We seemingly, successful tech startup, we've done the things that we have. We've still sent thousands of cold emails that go nowhere, that never got replied to, that maybe 10% come back that say, oh yeah, we like what you're doing, but you're not a good fit. See you later. Okay. And then maybe 1% will say like, hey, let's get a conversation going. And that's one meeting deep. And your goal is always to get the next meeting, to get to the next stage. It's never like in the entrepreneur's journey of raising money, they want to see points on goal. So keep working, keep pushing forward, build the things you need to build, whether that's hardware, software, the real estate, like having proof in the pudding, showing things is important. So saying, oh, we're going to do all these things and it's going to be great, that's a sales tactic. It can work, but it's better to have little points on the chain. So like when I talk to investors, day one, they typically, they're not going to invest. They're not going to say yes. They're not going to give me money. They're not going to do anything. They follow up on it a week later, a month later, 2 months later. And by the time I can show them all the progress we've had in the meantime, and then they'll say, all right, this guy's got the ball rolling. He's got momentum. He's made progress. This robot is working. I can come and see it. We can check it out. We can get our hands on it. We can taste the coffee. Everything's great. It's points on a line. You know what I mean? So don't get discouraged when the first meeting doesn't go your way, or you can't get a hold of the guy you want to get a hold of. Find someone that knows the guy to get you the warm intro a week later, a month later. Like follow up. We've had so much that has come back to us because we have been really tenacious in following up, double checking, and like crossing out any loose ends. Oh, we've got these 100 people that have replied that they're interested, but if they don't say no, then it might be a yes, right? You have to get through that. So it is, raising money is a crazy thing. It is fun. It's exhilarating. It's cool to get the deal done, but it's also like real soul crushing, crazy work behind the scenes that like no one gets to see. And it can be lonely, and it can, I know you're nodding along. It can be lonely where you're sending hundreds of emails that are all personal and all fancy and all perfect into the void. And you'll never, ever, ever hear from like 90% of these people. It's just true. It is the journey.
Right.
And so you deal with the ups, deal with the downs, celebrate your successes when things go your way, when you score the deal, when you get the investment, when you lock stuff in, when you're building cool stuff. Like, it isn't all about 2 years from now or 5 years from now. Like, live in the moment sometimes. Like, enjoy the things that you've done. So like I'm very thankful to have built the business that I have, to have the support system that I have with my family and my friends and our employees and our investors and the people. Like, you find people along the way that really, they believe in you, they support you, whether that's financially or commitments, making connections, networking. Like, there's so much to that. And so it's weird to think that, like, this is not all about technical skills. It's not all about how good of a programmer you are, how good of an engineer, how good of a hardware, how good of a tech guy you are. Sometimes it's about sales. Sometimes it's about, like, true story, secret behind the scenes. I'm an introvert. I would love nothing more than to be left alone and just dabble with my toys. I would love to be left alone. But to do this, to be who I am, to do podcasts, to be the face of the company, to pitch to investors, like, I have to mentally flip a switch and become an extrovert for 2 hours. I could do it for 2 hours, but that's okay. Just know that about yourself and know that it's not always fun. It's not always what you want to do, but sometimes it's what you need to do. So take time to sleep, eat good food, take care of your body, go to the gym, take some time off. Like, there's other things that are important in life, and just make sure that you live a balanced life. So I think that that's probably good advice to pass on to someone younger than me that's trying to get into this realm. But otherwise, always open if people want to reach out. I know Eugene will probably share my email up here or something like that. Where
Absolutely.
if there's questions, if there's comments, if there's, hey, what about this? What about that? If people want to make connections, I'd love and open to chat. I have had many hundreds of people give me their time, their money, their advice, their wisdom over the years. And so if I can give a little of that back, it's well deserved.
Adrian, I do love what you do. I'm amazed by your concept. I'm sure absolutely that there is a success. I mean, it is a success as of now, but there is a much greater success waiting there ahead. It's just a matter of time. Just need to be in the game, go step by step, grow it wisely, carefully, not to stretch out all the resources, to make sure it works. You were right saying that sooner or later it will hit. With those $15 per hour minimum wages, with those immense prices for coffee, with the need for automation, with the rise of robotics, is just a matter of time when it becomes a commodity. And those who are in the game, those who have well-developed technologies, those who have teams available to execute things, those who have proofs of concept, those gonna lead the niche absolutely. And I'm sure, I hope to see Octane Coffee among those who are leading the industry.
Sounds good. Well, thank you so much for having me.
It was my pleasure. Thanks everybody for watching Yummy Podcasts. If you're interested in getting in contact with Adrian, if you're interested in what Octane Coffee does, probably you're interested in partnering the concept at your location in the US, or maybe somewhere in Europe, Middle East, or in other locations. Under this video, you will be able to find contact details for Adrian's and Octane Coffee. And also, you're welcome to leave your comments and feedback under this video. Stay in touch, and thank you.
Sounds good. Thank you very much.